Well, happy Thursday to you, folks. It is January the 4th in this first full week of 2024. I'm back with you. Billy out, G in the saddle. We are going to figure out a way to get through the show on this special January the 4th. As you know, I like the history stuff a little bit here, and I don't mind telling you some of the interesting things that are historic about this particular day. A guy invented his very first revolver pistol, and then today in 1847, if you can do the math on that, that's 180 years ago, sold his first revolver pistol to the United States. That dude, Sam Colt, right there. Boom. In 1865, that's right. Let's see, but that's right about as we're wrapping up the Civil War. The New York Stock Exchange opened its first permanent headquarters at 1012 Broad Street near Wall Street in New York City. That's a good one. This one caught me by surprise. The longest recorded strike by employees ever ended on this day in 1961. Who was on strike, you ask? It was the Danish barbers' assistants. Not the barbers themselves. People were still getting haircuts, but they couldn't have barbers' assistants. They had unionized, and they had gone on strike for, wait for it, 33 years. That whoever they had working for them as their lobby people, their labor people, not that good, really not that effective. Also, I'm not going to call it a dark day in history, but you can draw whatever conclusions you want. On this day, this exact day, 17 years ago, Nancy Pelosi became the first female speaker of the House of Representatives in the 110th United States Congress. And again, I'm not going to say dark day. You give it whatever characterization you want. But on this day, 3 years ago, I can't believe it was 3 years ago, Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines are given to the general public, with 82-year-old Brian Pinker in the United Kingdom, the first to be jabbed. That was 3 years ago. In some ways, it feels like it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. In others, it feels like it was just the other day. And if you wanted to feel old, none of those things really made me feel dated. The Sam Colt thing, I guess, but, once you get into the 1800s, what are we doing? But the show Night Court, which I think is having a resurgence, they've done a refresh of it or something like that. I see John Larroquette on there. Night Court premiered on this day 40 years ago. What? 1984? It was on for 9 seasons, and I don't know what it's doing now. And then 23 years ago today, a guy named Michael Jordan, no, he wasn't playing for the Bulls. He was playing for the Wizards, became the 4th player in NBA history to score 30,000 career points, and he did it against the Chicago Bulls. Anyway, I thought that was all good historical stuff there. Now listen, for this particular Thursday, as I make my way over to the special information that I have access to, light snow. So if you were thinking about going out and doing the whole halter top thong thing as you mowed the lawn, one, your lawn's probably stopped growing a long time ago because it's January. But get out and do it this morning because colder, lighter snow, a high of only 37 degrees. Tomorrow, light afternoon snow, 38 degrees. Saturday, 40. Sunday, snow, 35. Monday, snow, 30. Folks, I remember those days when we were just consistently in that 70 to 80 range, sometimes into the 90s, and we'd read these things, and then all of a sudden, holy smokes. I mean, Sunday, they're saying it could get as low as 17 degrees. I'm almost certain that's very close to freezing. So just take that into consideration there. I'm still trying to figure out a way to get up the hill and do a little bit of snowboarding this year. As you know from the show, I did not get up a single day last season for 8 million different reasons. I've got to this year. Got to figure out a way to do it. Unfortunately, this weekend is a drill weekend for Big Daddy. That means politics free and no ability to drive up to the old Breck, although I've got some friends up there right now. It looks like it's pretty awesome. In terms of things going on, there's some big breaking news. I don't know if you pay attention to what happened with a guy named Epstein. Anybody ever heard that name before? Well, there was a list of names that were part of a lawsuit from 2015. The lawsuit was a defamation lawsuit, and it was brought by a young woman who'd been trafficked and victimized by Ghislaine, if that's how you say her name, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And that suit got settled in 2017, but only now, and it should have been a long time ago, the names from this particular list, there was a list of names from this trial, from transcripts, should have been released to the public. It didn't happen until yesterday. Now, we don't have the entire complete list, but there are a lot of names on here. The thing is that I don't see any that are like, knock your socks off. There's former President Bill Clinton. Anybody shocked at all by that revelation? It's been out there. He's mentioned more than 50 times in the filings, although there's no indication of any evidence of illegality on his part. His own representatives did not object to the unsealing. No evidence of illegality. Anyway, you can draw whatever conclusions you want there. Former President Trump is mentioned in the documents, but no reference is made to any illicit behavior. Does that shock you or concern you at all? I mean, there's something about this list I want to know, because I think we've all speculated that Jeffrey Epstein knew a bunch more stuff than the public was ever allowed to know, and what he knew would have been explosive. I mean, in fact, there's a quote attributed to him where he said, if the public knew what I knew about Biden and Trump, they'd have to cancel the 2016 election. That's Jeffrey Epstein. Now, he ends up dying in jail, and instantly the conspiracy theories start to pop up, and that is, whoa, why was this guy unattended? How did he kill himself? And I think he hung himself, but I can't remember. And then pretty soon those things develop into the fix is in. They, whoever the faceless they is that does everything with absolute power and anonymity, they killed him. They killed him to shut him up because he would have said things that would have brought down, I don't know, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. We don't know. But now we see Clinton on here. We see Trump on here. What we know is this dude had a ton of money, big private plane that he polluted the planet with all over the planet, flying around. He loved having the young girls brought on board, not just the plane, but on his little private island. And it seems undeniable that many of the people that were there, I'm not saying most, many of the people that went there to engage in some sort of lascivious conduct with girls, some of whom were underage. It seems like that's been the developed story here. So instantly there is a guilt by association thing here where if you were on the plane or you went to the private island, what the heck is going on? And so now we have Bill Clinton and we have Donald Trump. Does it matter? I mean, when you hear, oh, Bill Clinton, you go, I know what's going on there. I mean, one of the quotes that came out of this thing was Bill Clinton likes him young. Uh-huh. And that's shocking. Someone call Monica Lewinsky. But does it shock you at all that Clinton's on there? And in your mind, aren't you instantly thinking, I know what happened there? Do you do the same thing for Trump? When you see Trump mentioned in the documents, just like Clinton was, do you think, oh, I know what he was doing there? I mean, there's only a couple answers. One is, no, I don't think that at all. I don't think anything nefarious happened. I'm going to presume him celibate until proven otherwise. Or do you think, yeah, he did it, but I don't care. Not a big deal. Under the bridge, would never change my opinion on him. It's interesting because you've got both of these guys polarizing in their own way. Both former presidents, both former most powerful men in the world. It's amazing that they end up connected to this slimy, evil dirtbag. Someone else on the list, you may not have heard this, Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz. That dude is big time. Like they have movies where Ron Silver played him. Do you remember that movie? And it was, Alexa or someone's going to remember this or Google it and tell me, and I can't remember. Big time movie. I think Jeremy Irons was in it. He kills his wife and Dershowitz, Ron Silver gets him off. Good Lord. Anyway, Dershowitz, big time attorney. He became a big Trump guy, big Trump attorney in a way. And he is now part of these released documents. And this article says he helped disgraced financier Epstein get a sweetheart plea deal, which he did. Dude got a sweet deal. He's prominently featured in the filings, all of which predate the lawsuit in which, and I can't pronounce the young lady's name, and I probably shouldn't say it anyway. I don't know if we do that for victims who have made themselves public, but I'm not going to. Alleged she was trafficked to him. She alleged she was trafficked to Dershowitz. She withdrew that in 2022, saying she may have made a mistake in identifying him as someone that she was trafficked to. That's kind of a big deal. You know, it's one of those charges where it's like, it'd be one thing if someone said there was a storming of a Target, like we see in San Francisco and California, some of these other places where they have like the mob retail theft, and they break in through the front door and there's, 20 or 30 people running around just grabbing up things like it's a game show and the sand is running out of the hourglass. It'd be one thing for someone to say, oh, yeah. I saw Brauchler in there. I'd be horrified. I'd be like, there's no chance I would ever do something like that on camera. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that at all. But that'd be one thing. That'd be offensive. You'd want to clear your name. But imagine if somebody who has pointed her finger at a bunch of people and said, you engaged in trafficking me when I was underage for sexual purposes. And then you go, well, maybe it wasn't you. Like, oh my God, how do you get that taint off? And you know what I'm talking about, because whenever they put a picture up on the TV, on the news or online or something, if somebody accused of sexual assault on a child, don't you look at them and instantly go, nah, I knew it. You could see that guy a block away. Of course, that dude's a short eyes. You can totally tell. Look, he combs his hair with buttered toast. I mean, look at that look. The little mustache, the thing. You might have sat next to this cat in a cubicle for years and never suspected it. But the minute you see it on TV and the minute you hear someone say child predator or pedophile, that doesn't go. You can't wash that off. I mean, even if a jury were to acquit you, there would be people who'd be like, nah. I mean, it's such a toxic label to be given. Now, there's two other people on here that it doesn't seem like they're associated with the bad stuff either, but they're in there. David Copperfield. Guy could not magic himself off of this list. He could not disappear off this list. And Michael Jackson. Again, that one, just based on what we know now, the Neverland stuff, don't you kind of go, I get it. But, he passed away before all this stuff came to light, so I guess he beat it. But you wanna be You know what I'm talking about. And then some guy named Jean-Luc Brunel. I don't know who this cat is, but it says he is a former modeling agent and longtime Epstein associate, and that he died in a jail cell in France in 2022 while facing charges that he had denied over his alleged participation in the sex trafficking of minors. He appears in several of those documents as well. And then, of course, the prince, Queen Elizabeth II's second son, Prince Andrew. Talk about spare. Jeez. I mean, Harry thinks he's got it bad, being hooked up to Meghan and all that, which, by the way, I did not know that she is significantly older than he is, like 40 years. No, it's not 40. It's something else, but she is older than he is. And, they're going through their strife right now because their efforts to blow up the monarchy so they could hang out and become part of the Hollywood royalty does not seem to work. And so he writes his book bemoaning the fact that he's the second born, which means he's the spare. Nothing good can come of that unless, his brother falls down the stairs a couple times or something. So look at Prince Andrew. Yikes. There's a lot going on there with this guy. He, of course, has rejected allegations of any wrongdoing. And he denied all the other accusations by that victim that we talked about that brought the lawsuit, that Epstein arranged for him to sexually abuse and rape her when she was only 17 years old. He, of course, settled her lawsuit against him in 2022, but he did not admit wrongdoing. And let's be honest, folks, when you settle a lawsuit against you, you never admit. That's part of the thing. There's two things that usually happen. No one has to admit wrongdoing, and it's usually the terms of the settlement are sealed. In this particular case, of course, it doesn't look like that was 100% done. There's going to be more documents released with more names. There is one name off the list. I saw this on Colin Rugg's social media that had been redacted out of a bunch, but I don't know why they're redacted. This particular article says there's someone named Doe 107 has until January 22nd to submit support that revealing her name would bring her physical harm. And so I presume, listen, who wants to be on this list? You know what I mean? Like, who out there is like, it's not a big deal. I mean, Clinton's people didn't object because Clinton's reputation has been tarnished for going on 30, however many years it's been since the Monica Lewinsky thing. Well, what's there to lose now? Nobody looks at that guy and says, hey, can you please come babysit my preteen daughters? Nobody does that with this guy. So that, and I think it looks kind of guilty-ish. Thank you, texters, for being so smart and telling me it was reversal of fortune, the story of Klaus and Sonny von Bülow. Thank you, texter. That was the case in which, and that's like 3 decades ago. Alan Dershowitz was a big deal back then. He was the attorney for, I think, Klaus von Bülow, who used some Ozempic. No, I don't think it was Ozempic, but some sort of diabetic thing to poison his wife to death. Here's Alexa telling us Trump was exonerated in the testimony. Well, this will be good. Let's see what it says right there. Jeffrey, this is out of the transcript. Did Jeffrey ever talk to you about, and then it doesn't look like that happened. It says, this is Clinton liked his girls young. Trump, never on Epstein Island or an Epstein home FBI raid. Well, that's great to know. I'm glad that we heard that. And thank you for telling me that. Craziest one I heard was Stephen Hawking. Yes, Gina, I heard the same thing, but I read this article in the wee hours of the morning this morning, getting ready for the show, where even Epstein is in an email telling someone, no, Stephen Hawking absolutely did not participate in whatever this orgy thing was. And I'm like, first off, good to know, right? I mean, a brief history of time or whatever it is. But I'm picturing this now. How does that happen? I mean, there's only so many devices you can blow into that will do your bidding. I just don't understand. And I don't want it to be true. So I'm glad Jeffrey Epstein says it wasn't. Here's another one. Jeffrey Epstein was referring to Clinton and Trump election in 2016, not Biden. Was he really? Because as you know, not Biden, not 2020. Okay. That's super helpful. Not about Joe Biden. And now I feel like a maroon. as Bugs Bunny would say, because 2016, of course, was Hillary v. Donald. That's interesting. What he knows about Hillary. Jesus, what's that about? I'm sure it's about Bill, but what? Another stuff. Joan, who's such a great listener for us, is always good on saying, I'm listening to what you're talking about. I don't care. Let me just send you a bunch of things that are on my mind. And so, Joan, thank you for doing that. It's a bunch of stuff about the homelessness thing. And I do want to talk about that today because we didn't talk about this one aspect of what happened over the end of the year. And in part, which is Mayor Mike Johnston was able to secure housing for 1,000 people. Now, I was holding off on that, hoping against hope that what we could do is get the mayor on, but it has been bonkers trying to get his comms people to get back to us this time around. I don't know why that is, but I'm just going to move forward with this topic anyway. We'll talk about it after the break. Here's another text. That list of Epstein Island names is old news. I posted that on Twitter before it was fascist. Dershowitz was on Fox to explain it. Why do you think they're releasing this now? I don't know. Maybe it's because it comes along with the rest of the transcripts. It says perhaps to interfere with the election that Trump is going to win. I don't know how it interferes with Trump's election. I mean, if the information is out there, and Alexa helped me get it straight on here, that dude was in no way on the island or at his house or anything like that, or participated in the nonsense, then what does it do? Maybe it's a distraction from something, but it's kind of hard to distract from the border crisis that's taking place. This is just more like rubbernecking news, but it's been something that's been so highly touted and long awaited. I thought it would be worth seeing, but maybe this is it, man. Maybe we get it out now in the early part of the election cycle for 2024 so that people are like, nah. I mean, if this thing was going to be released as ballots were going out in October, nah, okay. That feels like interference. This, I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, do you think that, what's behind all this? Is this like we need transparency and we need to know what members of government and big time influencing society have been engaged in? 303-696-1971. That's our number, by the way. Give us a call. I do worry that we are rapidly approaching, maybe we're already here, a period of time where and I'm not trying to justify the criminal. I want to know the criminal stuff, but where you got to be so super cautious about who you hang out with, just because 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, that could come back to haunt you. You got to be worried about things you say. You know, I've heard some of these elite institutions, like the ones who just  have rid of 2 of their presidents. These folks will do a deep dive on social media. And there have been offers. We talked about this on the radio too. There have been offers for acceptance into these big schools rescinded because of a middle school posting that was deemed to be racist or misogynist or something. I mean, are we rapidly approaching an environment where where zero defect is the term that we would use in the military? Are we in a zero defect environment? Because that's not humanity. And I'm not suggesting that's what took place on Epstein Island. My God, far from it. I'm just saying at this point, you have people that hobnobbed around with this guy. And you got to think at some point that you're like, oh, I just saw Bill Clinton at this party. It can't be all, that's probably the wrong example. I just saw Trump at this party. It can't be all horrible. Or I see all these big people. This guy can't be bad. No one would think, oh, this is a great party. I bet that guy traffics little girls. And yet 5, 10, 20 years later, your name shows up on a list and people are like, you son of a, I mean, are we at that place right now? My God, social media. If we had social media when I was at Bear Creek, if we had anything other than Polaroid pictures when I was in high school and college, first off, I wouldn't be on the radio unless it was prison radio. There's no chance I could have ever been elected to anything. That's because young people do stupid things. And it sounds like there are a bunch of adults who just assume that they can go hang out with certain people and what harm can come. And then 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, you find out, oh, dude was peddling little children for sex. And I went on his private plane. And now everybody thinks somehow I'm a part of this thing. Craziness. 303-696-1971. What's going on here? I do want to talk about the Michael Johnson thing. But this list, the release of this list, and I appreciate that last text. You think there's something else behind it? If so, what is it? Well, I mean, should we even care? If we already knew this stuff, should we care about who's on this list? 303-696-1971. Stick around. We'll get to your calls, your texts as more of them come in here. It's The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here at 710 KNUS. Lines are open at 303-696-1971. We do have some texts in here, and my God, the stuff Alexa finds, I want this to be true. And this is in reference to the Stephen Hawking thing. We're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein list. It's been partially released at this point. This part is bonkers. Please, folks, I'm reading it because I trust Alexa, who goes out there and finds this good information. So if this turns out to be false, it's Billy's fault because he's not here. Here's what it says. This is a question from the transcript that was released. Question: did Jeffrey ever talk to you about Stephen Hawking's proclivities? Yes. He liked watching undressed midgets solve complex equations on a too high up chalkboard. I just don't understand. I'm telling you, folks, the guy, this is proof, man. The guy whose brain probably works as good or better than just about anybody you've ever heard of before, the brilliance, still has fetishes. It didn't make it into the movie, by the way. The theory about everything or whatever it was, I did not see Redmayne at ever lustingly look towards a midget dressed or otherwise. I just to read the sentence again, it's making me cough. Yes, he liked watching undressed midgets solve complex equations on a too high up chalkboard. Now, again, this is the thing. I look at Stephen Hawking and I think what a miraculous life that guy lived, especially given the disability that was visited upon him by God, by fate. It was just, this thing happens. He still goes on to expand human knowledge. And now I've got this in my head. I've got undressed midgets at a chalkboard solving any equations. Honestly, why complex? Like if they were just doing simple math or they were having to carry the two or something like that, that's just not enough. If you don't get it into quadratic equations, I just don't get turned on. I mean, what's going on here? And I can't unsee that now, Alexa. You've ruined this for me. You've ruined Stephen Hawking for me. Alexa has a qualification. Community notes say it's been altered, but there's also an email that says he participated in orgies. Yeah, but there was also another email from Epstein. I just really hope that's fake. I want it to be fake because the dude's just so brilliant. Was so brilliant. Another text. Yes, we should care. Many of these people are trying to shape the course of our country with their status and money. Well, I agree with that. Okay. The people that are trying to shape the country or the influencers and all that. I mean, would you say the same thing? And again, I was about to say Kim Kardashian, but Kim Kardashian's already let us know what all of her bizarreness is. That's how she got to be famous, Ray J. But how about like Taylor Swift? Taylor Swift, maybe the most popular, successful, famous pop singer on the planet Earth right now. $1 billion, billionaire. She changes pop culture too. Should we get to know the things that she engages in? What if they're not criminal, but they're just perverse or they're weird? Should we get to know? I don't think so. I don't think we get to know those things. If she wants to tell us about them, maybe it's an album in there. I don't know. Maybe it's with Kelsey. He's a chief. But otherwise, I don't think so. But if they engage in criminal conduct, then I don't care anymore if they're people of power or influence. Just did they run afoul of the law? Alexa took a similar point on this thing. We should absolutely care about who's on this list. Most of these people were having sex with underage girls and trafficked girls. Absolutely right. It's criminal. Why hasn't, and this is an important question, why hasn't any person been charged for this other than Epstein and Maxwell? I don't know. I don't know if it's just because it's just not enough anymore to have a person say this person did this to me. I get that. We see that all the time. There are sex assault accusations that are made every single year in jurisdictions throughout the state, probably the country, certainly in the metro area. And in those allegations, cops try to come up with all the evidence that they can. They'll do a whole bunch of different things. If it's untimely, then they can't get the DNA. They can't. If there's pictures, if there's descriptions of identifying marks on someone that only their doctor, spouse, or someone else that had had intimate knowledge of them would know that's something too. Like, oh yeah, he has a tattoo that says exit only right there on his tramp stamp spot. I don't know. Whatever that thing is, that could be evidence. The other thing that they'll try to do is they'll try to do these special little setup phone calls where the person will call the person and say, hey, I want to talk about what happened the other night. I can't believe you did that to me. Why did you do that? You knew how drunk I was, or I wasn't even awake, or whatever. And you're trying to get the other person to do the right thing and apologize, or at least give a description that, hey, that's not how it went down. This is how it went down. So they put themselves there and they put themselves in the act. Or you get them on the phone and they say, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing like that ever happened. And that doesn't give you anything other than exculpatory evidence. So, some of the lack of prosecution here could be the product of the fact that there just isn't enough evidence. And if you could even track someone's movements down to where you could say they were absolutely present at the time that this particular party/orgy were held, is that enough? I don't think so. Just being present. Now, if you were in the room where a crime like that occurred, then I feel a little bit differently there. Now you are in a position to do something and you didn't. And while not criminal, that's shameful. But if you were, I don't know, waiting in line, clapping, encouraging, working the camera, I don't know, any of those things, yeah, you're now an accomplice to this whole thing. But I just don't know how we're going to get there. And maybe these transcripts will help reveal that. But it seems to me that law enforcement has known about this for a long time. And they didn't feel like they had enough to move forward. Or if you're going to take the other political approach, you say, well, they're not going to go after the people who butters their bread. They're part of this big conspiracy. They're not going to go after the people that would get knocked out of government because those are their benefactors. Those are the powerful people. I don't know. 303-696-1971 is our number. I think it's an interesting thing. I'm interested to know why no charges have been brought on additional people, because it is clear that this young woman is talking about people who victimized her. It could be, too, that in other countries there may be statute of limitations issues, and that's why she was left to sue Prince Andrew. Think about this. If you go to court through the state, at best, personally, you can expect restitution. And restitution isn't pain and suffering and anything like that. That's like out-of-pocket expenses directly related to being a victim of this particular crime. It's also a super high bar, beyond a reasonable doubt. A civil suit is a much lower bar, preponderance of the evidence, usually, and now in Colorado this is true, with a much more forgiving statute of limitations. So you can bring the charge years later. Now, that's true also on the criminal side these days in Colorado, but it hasn't always been so. I don't know what it is like in the United Kingdom. I'm trying to think of when she sued Prince Andrew. So there may be that. There may also be the opportunity to guarantee at least some greater level of anonymity. Anonymity is not the right word. Some limitation on the exposure of some of the information through the civil system than there would be on the criminal side. When the government accuses you of a crime, every damn thing they do and say shows up in a place that becomes publicly available unless there's some super limited reason why it can't be. On the civil side, it just doesn't seem like that stuff gets out as much. And so there's an opportunity here, like for Prince Andrew, there's an opportunity to say, Prince Andrew, rather than try to lock you up and try my case in a criminal court that's super public, where you're going to get a chance to cross-examine the hell out of me. And we have this super high bar, and at the end of the day, I win a conviction, or the state does, and very little else. I can sue you, try to develop more discovery, put the screws to you, and try to get at least something that might help me move my life forward. I mean, the example I'll give you of how these two worlds collided was Kobe Bryant. I think I've told this story before, but I'll do it after a break. It's just long enough. I'll do it after a break. We'll head into the 7 o'clock hour. Reached out to a couple of superstar legislators, Lynch and Puglisi, and I'll see if we can get any others on. I just want to talk about this upcoming legislative session. I think kickoff is today. They had some vacancy committee voodoo yesterday that took place, a little bit of controversy here and there, but otherwise, it's something like, I don't know if this is the right number, 1/3 of everybody in the legislature these days is not actually elected by the voters they represent. They were put in place by a majority vote of a vacancy committee of, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 40 people. I mean, that is an appalling lack of democracy in this particular republic. 303-696-1971. Let's do this. Let's cut away for a break after this read, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how the criminal stuff impacts civil and vice versa, and why maybe the civil stuff is the most we can hope for in the case of Jeffrey Epstein. Although I'd love to see the criminal prosecution piece. Really love to see it. 303-696-1971. Hey, if you're feeling like, and I am, by the way, if you're feeling a little bit under the weather or slower than you normally would, and it's 2024, and you're like, I had all these plans, I had all these resolutions. One of the things that you might want to do, one of the things I'm going to do, is to get my portion of the UltraCur product. You can tell I got a little bit of the cough. UltraCur is this patented, non-prescription, all-natural, curcumin-based, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and I need that too. I got this thing, I was dragging around my right foot yesterday, this weird swelling just in this one portion of my heel. I can't explain it, never had it before. And I thought, the problem here is when I was abroad there in Florida, didn't take the UltraCur with me. So I've started that process back up. Billy and I have both been taking this stuff. This thing works. It works for me. I can't tell you that the results are identical for every single person, but I can tell you that the results happen. For some, about half the people that take it within 48 hours, half of them within 2, you just go get your free 3-day supply at your vitamin cottage. Go to your vitamin manager, ask them. If they put them out on the shelves, man, people would just come by and take them all, right? You say free, people are like, great, I'm going to grab them all up. Just ask for them. You'll get at least 1 3-day supply, but then say, hey, can I get one for my wife, my son, my daughter, whatever it is, whoever else it is that you love, my neighbor, and I want to give them a chance to try this thing too. And then go get the rest that you're going to need as you move forward. GetUltraNow.com is where you can get all your questions answered. GetUltraNow.com. Check them out, UltraCur. When we come back, I'll tell the story. I'll get to your text. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you, 710 KNUS, final segment of the 6 o'clock hour. If you haven't been on the YouTubes or the Rumbles, man, Lewis has this fantastic stream. I'm just now noticing it. I don't know how long he's been running this thing, of different ski places, some in Colorado, some outside of Colorado, but it's just like this stationary camera that he's tapping into where folks are just coming and going at the ski hill. I don't know why I find that fascinating. Also a little jelly because, again, I haven't been up snowboarding yet. Hey, here's the story I quickly want to tell. And then I want to, actually, you know what? Let me do this. Alexa, who's clearly way up on this more than I am. Alexa says, you are wonderful. No, it says, Epstein took videos of the elite having sex with these girls in his New York home, New Mexico ranch, and on the island. The FBI is in possession of these videos. I believe the videos clearly show who's involved. Why isn't the FBI charging these people? Holy crap. That's a great question, Alexa. If that's true, and clearly I have not done the research on that particular issue that you have, oh my God, yeah, why aren't people being prosecuted? What's the missing evidence there? With just the limited time I have, I'll just share with you the story on the Kobe Bryant case. Long time ago, Kobe Bryant came to town to rehab a knee up there at a place called Cordillera up in Vail. I'm not even sure it's there anymore. Pretty famous place, high-end place. And he goes up there. And of course, he's a geographic bachelor at the time. And there's a young lady there who's the victim in this case. And she works there. And she's super excited because she is tasked with checking them in and all this other stuff. He is flirting with her. And of course, she doesn't rebuff him at all. And who wouldn't be? You know, I'd be flattered if Kobe Bryant had flirted with me and I'm a straight guy. And one thing leads to another. He asks her for a tour of the place and then talks her into coming back and kind of defeating his security by sneaking into the room a different way. And then she would take him on this private tour. And she takes him on this tour. They go back to the room. One thing leads to another. And he makes a pass at her and starts kissing her and pretty soon starts groping her. And it's about that time that she decides this is crazy. This is not exactly where I thought this was going to go. I mean, it was really fun but I'm super scared and freaked out. And she tries to stop it. And of course, there's no stopping it, right? Like for Kobe Bryant, that train has left the station and he ends up taking her over to the couch and he rapes her. And then she leaves. And then it's a day or so later that she ends up making the outcry and sets in motion a whole bunch of things. He gets arrested by the police up there. That maybe it was the sheriff. He's in the back of the car. They said, hey, you had sex with so-and-so. He says, no, I didn't. They said, we're getting DNA. He said, okay, I did, but it was consensual, that kind of thing. So keep in mind, he hires Pam Mackey, who one of the best defense attorneys in Colorado, maybe ever, but certainly within the last 20 plus years. She's retired now. And she gets on the case and this thing's proceeding forward. The DA up there at the time is a guy who's the DA of 4 counties, just like the 18th, but it's ski country. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't have the experience. So he reaches out to the district attorney's council and says, hey, I need help. They reach out to the 1st Judicial District, Jeffco, and they bring on board 2 fantastic sex assault prosecutors. One is named Dana Easter. The other is named Ingrid Bakke, who is now the chief judge in Boulder, who's overseeing the mass murder by the King super shooter. I'd worked with both of these women before in trials and stuff like that, and they had used me to do a mock cross-examination of sex assault victims in other cases. And then 2 weeks before trial, they asked me to do the same thing for this victim. And I do it. I spend all weekend preparing, reading through jillions of pages of reports and transcripts and all this stuff. And I get ready and we go into a courtroom, super secret courtroom. And for 3.5 hours, I act like I'm the defense attorney and I kind of go after the victim and not in an aggressive, malicious way. An effective cross-examination, in my opinion, involves very little pounding of the table and demeaning. I don't think that's effective. That's TV stuff. And it ends up ending 3 times in there with her kind of collapsing emotionally. And by the end of it, we get through it. And I think, yeah, this woman's battle tested and all that. Well, one of the people in the room watching this trial was her civil attorney. Dude's name may be familiar to you, Lynn Wood. And my guess is Lynn went back and had a conversation with her. And based on just exactly what I told you, said, we can go to criminal court and we'll lose here. Our civil case is worth zero, or you can bow out of the criminal case. We'll settle this case for good money and you can live your life. She did the latter, and that's how Kobe Bryant ended. Listen, when we come back, it'll be 7 o'clock. We're going to change up the topic. It's going to be you and me, more your text. George Brauchler, stick around. 7:10, KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's hour 2 of 4. Charlie Kirk after us for now 2 hours ever since Stephen Tubbs popped smoke and fled the country to Europe. I think he may be back now. I'd sent a couple text messages to Mayorkas saying, take a pause from not defending the southern border and stop this one guy from coming back to America. That may have failed. It seems like Stephen slipped over the border as easily as anyone else does these days. But we've got Charlie Kirk from 10 to noon, a little DP, Dennis Prager after that, Seb Gorka, 1 to 3, 2 to 4, and then Brandon Tatum, who you've heard on here from 4 to 7. And then, of course, we go live and local for the last show of the first week of January tomorrow from 6 to 10. James will be doing the behind the glass work. G right now just staring at the clock, begging it to move more quickly. I just can't imagine any of the producers that have to fill in for Billy saying, yay, I have to get here earlier than 5 a.m. But nonetheless, they're doing a great job. Geronimo, thanks for keeping us on the air despite the texts. Here's what I wanted to do is to change up. And by the way, I keep getting great texts from people giving me this awesome information. Like someone else sent, I can't get through the whole text on air, but they talked about The Sound of Freedom, which it's on my watch list. It's on Amazon Prime right now. If you get that built into the Prime membership, I have that on the watch list. It's just hard to carve out, a good hour and a half to 2 hours to just sit and watch. Most of the things I consume off of the television are taking place while I'm doing stuff. Maybe I'm playing a game with the kids, or I'm cleaning the kitchen, or trying to write a column or something. But this is one of those ones that I just want to sit and watch. I just don't have a lot of time like that. So maybe I got to build that into a tomorrow night thing at the end of the day. Anyway, a lot of stuff in there suggesting that the FBI is complicit in this. And again, I know many of you think the FBI is corrupt, top to bottom, burn it to the ground, rotten to the core. I've heard so many things like that. I don't believe that, because I've actually worked with the frontline troops, the men and women of the FBI, including getting to know a guy, superstar, Jeremy Phelps, who I think is now out in the San Diego area. But that dude was our right-hand guy during the Aurora Theater trial 8 years ago. And I'm telling you, man, these are just good human beings. They're your neighbors. They're the people that if things started to go bad on your block, you would say, where's Jeremy? Or they're just good people. So could the FBI at the highest levels influence what cases get looked at? We know that's true from the originator of the FBI, Herbert Hoover. We know he was dirty. It doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. I just don't want to indict an entire organization full of good people who are patriots because of the efforts of the people at the upper echelon. Oh, by the way, I was listening to this podcast I've recommended to you before called Advisory Opinions, and they talked about the fact that they were talking about salaries for Supreme Court justices and how they were, and this is an interesting conversation. And they talked about, hey, listen, one of the things we can do to address the sort of the Clarence Thomas stuff and all the allegations and the implications is this. Let's adopt the most draconian ethics rules possible for the Supreme Court justices and say, you have to pay for everything, right? Like your sister can't buy you lunch, that kind of thing. But we increase their salaries to $1 million a year, but they're on the hook for everything. And I thought, whether that number's right or not, I thought that's so intriguing. One of the things that came out of this conversation was Chris Wray, the much maligned Trump-chosen director of the FBI. Do you know how much that cat made the year he was selected to be in the FBI, before he became the FBI guy, the year before that, before he got sworn in, tapped by Trump? $9.2 million. What? Dude was a partner in some big old law firm. I've never heard of it. King and Spalding and King or something like $9.2 million. Clearly this dude didn't become the head of the FBI for the dollars, just to be hated by everybody. It's just, it was an impressive amount of money nonetheless. One more thing, George, not everyone in the FBI is bad. I'm sure it's just like anywhere else. You got your good and you got your bad. Unfortunately, nobody ever sees the good. They always see the bad. And that's what everybody looks at. Have a good day. I don't disagree with that sentiment, but I don't think they always look at the bad. I mean, look at DJT. There's a lot to not like about the dude and the way he's lived his life, but we look past that and we say he was great as president. Like, we love what he did with the border. I'm a huge fan of the idea that while we figure out your amnesty claims, your asylum claims, you got to be somewhere not here while we figure out if you should be here. That just makes a lot of sense, right? Same thing with like a hotel. If you went to check into a hotel and they're like, wow, your method of payment hasn't been accepted. If you were to say, it's going to take a couple days to figure this out, they don't say, well, you know what? Stay in the room until we figure out your payment thing, right? Like nobody else operates the way we do on things like this. Anyway, that wasn't the topic that I wanted to cover. What I wanted to cover with you was the idea that we'd started this conversation yesterday by talking about the 10 to 15% of the Denver budget that is now going to have to be committed to caring for the migrant crisis. Because just in 1 year, December to December, 22 to 23, 36,000 migrants have shown up in Denver. Most of them bust from Texas. 36,000. Englewood has been bussed to Denver and dumped off on the streets. You know that problem doesn't just stay in Denver. It goes everywhere else. We know that just because the Denver mayor had some people in Aurora ushered out of their hotel rooms and motel rooms to make room for Denver migrants. Now, maybe that's a one-off. I don't know. But the broader issue is this. What the hell are we doing and how are we going to pay for it? This is a cousin issue to that because we're talking about how do you house people that don't have housing. You know that Mayor Mike Johnston, who I'm friendly with, I mean, say what you will about his policies and maybe you don't like him because he's a D and you think that he's left and all this other stuff. Mike Johnston's a good guy. I don't think he has a corrupt bone in his body. I think you can be wrong and not be corrupt in being wrong. I don't agree with all the decisions that he's made. I didn't when he was a state senator, but I've spent enough time with him, and I'm talking like one-on-one, both in the legislature and just over coffee. I was at a wedding sitting next to him at a wedding for a friend's daughter with his wife, who's a prosecutor, for God's sake, out of Denver, real hardcore prosecutor. And I got to know him a bit, and my conclusion is this is a good dude. I disagree with his approach on the housing first thing. I just think it's wrong. I think it's never worked anywhere on the planet Earth. I don't think it will ever work because it's contrary to human nature. Having said that, I want him to succeed. Well, now enter this pledge that he made about 6 months ago when he got sworn in. He was going to get 1,000 homeless off the streets by the end of the year. And he claimed victory. I mean, it wasn't quite the George Bush on the aircraft carrier mission accomplished landing thing, but it was close. They declared victory. Now, we have to scrutinize those numbers. My hope is that the Kyle Clarks and the Tony Kovalevskis and all the other investigative reporters out there, hell, maybe even a superstar like Dave McGoya, are digging into this to try to find out how legitimate this was. Because if you remember, there was some controversy about how they started counting the numbers when it was revealed that some of these folks were off the streets for mere days or something like that. And then they were back on the streets. And it was like, okay, how do you count that as a win? So it's not like they're saying there are 1,000 people off the streets on December the 31st that were on the streets before. I think that's important. And I haven't heard them say that. But we did get 1,000 people off the streets. I don't know how, for 2 or 3 weeks. This is the point that I want to get your this is listener participation in a creative way here. The ticket, the cost to Denver for those 1,000 people that they've housed now, no matter what you think, for less than 6 months, could be 3 weeks, could be 3 months, we don't know. $45 million. $45 million. Now, I saw that number and I didn't see anybody else on social media or in the media do any of the simple math, but I'm a simple math guy. I went to public school. I'm a Belmar, Carmody, Bear Creek dude who then went on to the University of Colorado a couple times. I'm a public school guy. So my math skills were questionable to begin with. And I'm not disparaging public school, high school math teachers, but anyway, so it was easy for me to look at $45 million with those 6 zeros there and then throw 1,000 into it by way of division. I canceled out this, I canceled out that, and it turns out that means that Denver spent $45,000 per homeless person. In 6 months, $45,000 per person. So I did more math. And believe me, this took me hours to do. I mean, I did not seek the assistance of any undressed midgets on too high to reach chalkboards. I didn't do any of that. I did this all with a computer, a supercomputer. But it turns out that $45,000 per person could have been used to get a homeless person into a $100 a night hotel room, which ain't bad. I get hotel rooms are expensive, but I'm not, listen, you're not going to be staying at the Wyndham or the Marriott or the Four Seasons. I get it, right? But for $100 a night, dang, that ain't bad. 450 days. 450 days you could have put a single homeless person in their own room in a hotel. That's about 16 months, people. Denver spent $45 million to get 1,000 people off the streets for as little as a few weeks. What the heck are we doing? OMG. And now that makes me wonder why in the world it will take $180+ million to take care of 36,000 migrants. There's a disconnect here. I mean, I posted that on Twitter. That thing got as much traction as about anything I've put up in the last month or so. But what I loved about it was the creativity. What I loved about it was the idea that people are like, well, wait a minute. And by the way, think about this. If it was just a $50 a night motel room, not a great motel room, $75, that's more days. Maybe we could have housed these people for 18 months in a hotel room and maybe for less. But people were like, well, wait a minute. Here's the cost of a plane ticket to fill in the blank, you know what I mean, to Washington, D.C. or something like that. And then we could have saved $44,500 per. I mean, and this is what I'm asking of you. How could you have solved this homeless issue? How could you have gotten 1,000 people off of Denver's streets for more than a few weeks at less than $45,000 per homeless person? Let's be creative. Let's help Denver. Hell, you may live in Denver. This could be coming out of your pocket, right? Or you may work in Denver and everything you buy there over lunch and the parking and all that stuff is helping Denver spend $45,000 per homeless person. How do you solve this with $45,000 per person? 303-696-1971. We're also, by the way, going to be joined at 8 o'clock by the minority leader for the House of Representatives. His name is Mike Lynch. He's going to let us know what's going to go on at the legislature. I think it's today. Could be next week. Feel like I'm just not on the legislative calendar yet, but OMG, is it going to be something this particular session. Hey, let's go to Dwayne from Divide. You're on 710 KNUS. Dwayne, what do you think?
Good morning and fresh New Year tidings, sir.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, well, the travels have been wonderful. $45,000, you could have put them on the Bugs Bunny Motel out there in Colfax for 2-3 years.
Yeah, that's a great reference. By the way, Bugs Bunny Motel, an icon out there on every time you drive down that road. I don't know what it costs, but that can't be $100 a night, right?
Oh, I think between all the options you can get, I think it was 45 last time I thought about doing it for laughs. But anyway, the problem is that you are a sanctuary city in Denver. So you're basically saying you got a 1-bedroom apartment. Hey, come on over. I got a place for you to stay. And then when too many people are in the house and the landlord finds out that there's, 12 people, you're not paying the rent, it's a problem. I don't care. I'm not going to give $1 in taxes. I would like to say this to help out Denver. $45,000, you sit there and turn them around, hand them $8,000 and send them back to their home country on a plane trip. Heck, give it to them on first class if you want to. Send them back. Get them out of out of our country.
I like the thought, Dwayne. What about the idea of saying, And maybe this is a broader national policy. What if we said, we will pay you to stay in Mexico while we adjudicate your asylum claim? Now, my preference would be we had more judges and more personnel and more border guards to make sure people stay out, and we adjudicate these things more quickly. That would be my hope. But in the absence of that, could we save a ton of money and preserve our country if we were to simply say, here's the deal. We caught you. We're sending you back. And every month that you stay there in Mexico, we're going to throw you a couple grand. How long could we keep these people? Wouldn't that actually save us money in the long haul, over the long haul? You know, I'm trying to think. I like your idea of sending them back, but then what? Like, how do we keep them out? Let's pay them to stay out.
Well, first of all, Stanford and other universities are doing leftist policies throughout Central America. I've spent over 8 years down there and everything else, so I see what's going on. $500 in San Salvador is almost considered luxury wages. So we give them, like I say, 8 grand. Here you go back. We make it a one-time deal, and we say you can't come back, you can't do anything. By the way, I keep looking down there at Eagle Pass. I don't see too many women and children, but I see a lot of guys between 18 and 40.
Yep.
I'd like to know what's going on there. There's a cockroach problem, and he said bad things about people. No, these people are leeches. These people are coming up here to bleed our resources. I feel sorry I have friends in Brownsville, Texas, and they said what was once a really nice little place is absolutely destroyed.
Yeah,
things
Gonville.
get stolen. Yeah. I mean, they'll steal paint off a car right now because they just got to try and get something. The country's overrun.
I should have asked Geronimo to clip this. You may have seen this, Dwayne, but there's recent sound from Nikki Haley, and it was Vivek that put it out, but it was a clip of her making some comment where she's like, let's remember that these are just folks looking to improve their families' lives, and they're here to earn money, and we shouldn't call illegal aliens criminals. And I'm like, holy smokes. Listen, I like a lot about what Nikki Haley brings to the table, but that all of a sudden sounds to me like a lot like the leftists, right? Like they can't be homeless, they're unhoused. Like what we call them matters more than trying to address their situation. But the approach she took, I thought, was, who are you playing to here? Because it isn't the conservative base, it isn't reality, but this idea that, well, they're here to better their lives and their families' lives, as if, oh, well, as long as the motives are good, then it's okay. It's not. We have a law. Well, you can't come here without our permission. If you come here without our permission, you are a criminal.
Well, it's not even so much permission. It's just that, I'm sorry, you don't have any of the items we need from you right now, so please go back. I was in a foreign country over the holidays, and it was a wonderful experience because I was seeing multi-million-dollar cars. I've seen 5 Bugatti Veyrons, and my little guy was just absolutely astounded by it.
You're a car dude too, so.
Yes, well, yes. But I mean, just the whole environment of being there. Nobody bothered anything. You could leave. I mean, I dropped my wallet and the man came running up and apologizing to me that I dropped my wallet and said, I'm so sorry, sir, here you go. And I handed him a little money, and it was just like, now you're going to have everybody following you. I said, I don't think so. And we were not bothered. And I was on the graces of a friend's allowing us to be in country. And it was just a wonderful experience. Yet they handle everything. The streets were spotless. It would have made the San Francisco streets of the China visit look like they were some, empty sewer tank in comparison. Everybody was polite. Everybody was it was an experience where I was like, I just wish I could afford to figure out how to live here and still do all the things I need for the medical for the little guy. And I think probably we would figure out a way to do it because he was very adamant about my staying. But Denver is a sanctuary city. You guys said, hey, come on in. And as I used my earlier example, you got 15 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. Everything's going to break. Everything's going to overload. We need to sit there and say, here it is, done. We're done. What Biden is doing is destroying this country through this aspect. And if it's not him, then whoever in the White House likes open borders. The Koch brothers, the big, Republican big spender donors, they liked an open border. The Better Business Bureau loves to have illegals, and that's what they are. They're illegal. They're undocumented. They are not processed through to become in this country. How in the world did they get a work permit? How in Chicago are they becoming law enforcement officers?
That's the push by the mayor, is to get the federal government to provide more work visas or permits or whatever the vehicle is to get them legally employed. I just can't believe that that's the right answer here. All we're doing is making those that have crossed over the border as either asylum seekers or even illegals. We're just trying to put them in a position to make them de facto citizens. I mean, it's just going to be a small step forward to start to put ballots in their hands. And I am completely freaked out by that proposition. Hey, Dwayne, thanks for the conversation.
One quickly, please.
Okay,
as
buddy.
you know, I'm a first-gen American. My folks paid for all my citizenship papers and everything else. That was an expensive endeavor for them to do. I want a class action lawsuit. If we get these people in, I want that money back. I'll take it as a ceremonial dollar, but I want them to sit there.
We'll interview you about your lawsuit, especially if it's victorious, man. That would be great.
Oh, like I say, if it was just a $1 gratuity just to slap them down. But I mean, I know people that I've sponsored and helped first generation Americans. One young lady right now, she runs a business. She has 9 CNAs, 6 LPNs, but she came from East Germany. And inside of 10 years, this is what she's running legitimately. No begging. She worked herself 2 jobs.
That's
she
the
got
story.
her CNA license.
That's the story.
And these are the things I want. This is what I want. I don't want the guy, 35 years old who might be a sleeper cell. And believe me, George, if you think that this is all just happy people coming in to go pick oranges, no,
I don't.
There's more darkness in this hole than we even want to consider. Sir, have a great day. I don't think
that at all. Hey, Dwayne, thanks for the phone call, my man. Frank, Jim, and whoever's calling in on Dwayne's line at 303-696-1971. I promise we're going to get to you. I just want to take a quick break so I can give you as much time to chat as possible. I love the conversations. New year, new you? ? Maybe if you're that person that's out there that notices that, hey, I feel like I'm hitting that stride in age. I've asked myself this question too, and that is my body starting to slow down just through the natural aging process? I'm not getting the sleep that I used to get. For me, that's a 14-year issue, but not getting the sleep I need. I just don't feel as energetic. My workouts, my motivation, it's just not that high. Maybe it's the low testosterone that comes for so many with just the normal aging process. Not your fault. It's just how the DNA bakes it in. Well, there's an answer for it. You can get treatment at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Check them out at RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. These are folks that are in the business of putting that spring back in your step, giving you the superpowers you had before. You want to lose weight. You want to feel better, feel more energetic. Maybe it's just about being the partner that you used to be at that same level. Check them out by going to that website. Take the low T quiz on their website. Just 10 questions, easy to do in about 2 minutes. And if you're the person that they're like, yep, we think we can help you, then schedule a consultation with them. When you do it, it's $99 unless you sign up for the testosterone treatment the day of your appointment. They just waive that $99, right? So set up a time, meet with them, and see if this isn't the answer to what's ailing you right now. They do the T-test, the PSA test, the whole thing. Give them a call, 720-440-7900, 720-440-7900, or visit them at RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. When we come back, we'll get to the calls, the text. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. 710 KNUS being taken all the way back to my younger days. I think that was even high school time. Listen, we're talking about the migrant crisis, but also the homeless crisis and the response by Denver to this. Combined, we're talking about close to $250 million, $45 million to get 1,000 homeless people off the streets for 10 to 20 minutes in Denver over the last 6 months. That's $45,000 per homeless person. If you add that to the 180 plus million, 188-ish million dollars Denver expects to have to spend on the 36,000, or maybe it's got to have spent a ton of that just on the 36,000. This is in the future. You're looking at, we being Denver, has spent $250 million or more on a crisis that their own policies have generated. No joke. If Denver were not a sanctuary city, a proudly proclaimed sanctuary city, do you think we'd have had busloads, 20 busloads, as Tony Kovaleski told us yesterday, of migrants dumped off at a Sam's Club parking lot? I don't. You think if we didn't have the permissive road to homelessness policies adopted by Governor Hickenlooper back in the day when he was mayor, that we would have this many homeless? I don't. But nonetheless, $45,000 per homeless person. I postulated, and I think Dwayne said, Bugs Bunny motels are great when they couldn't handle 1,000, but there must be other hotels like that. You could have housed these people for years in a friggin' motel. What is this money paying for? There is clearly a homeless industrial complex that's out there. And my guess is now we're going to have a migrant industrial complex too. People that are in the business not of solving a problem, but of managing a problem. And by managing it, they prolong it. Because if you end it, what do? I mean, this is why Al Sharpton will never advance the end of racism. He'll only be there to point at people and say racist, or this is racism. Because if all of a sudden he acknowledged that racism was greatly diminished compared to what it was back in the 60s, maybe he's out of a job, right? That's what's happening here. But what could we do with the $45,000 to end this homeless crisis better? Jim, you're on 710 KNUS. Jim, what do you say?
Hey, good morning. I just want to make clear we're on the same side. I'm not calling to argue with you, but this
well, you can.
Financial...
You have in the past, but you can.
Well, it's not an argument. It's just, sarcastically, I'd say the cheapest way to deal with these people that are living at, in the ends of our driveways and tents.
Hey, Jim, your signal's a little wonky. Can you grab hold of an electric fence or an antenna or something? It was just a little gibberishy there.
Yeah, how's that? Is that better?
That sounds better. Yeah,
maybe that's better.
That sounds better.
Well,
that sounds better.
Just sarcastically, if we're going to be dealing with money on every end, and we want to find the cheapest way to deal with these people that are living in tents at the end of our driveway, then let's just give them a real estate license, and then they'll be in a Lexus at the end of our driveway. Okay. So, but like I said, I'm not calling to argue, but this is very clear. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the American people have the option or the opportunity to be productive in this nation. And we can't just close the doors because we have an aging population. And I mean, I've been to a Jewish rest home, right? With all the people working inside that Jewish rest home are Muslim immigrants from Africa. And to me, that's just absolutely crazy to have a Jewish rest home where a majority of the people are Jewish, and the management brings in African Muslims to administer their life-saving pills and change their diapers. I mean, I think America is going to go with the most expensive route every single time.
Well, Jim, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like from your standpoint, you're like, listen, you're not suggesting amnesty for everybody here. I think what you're saying is we need to lighten up on the work visa permit status thing so that these people can get jobs, lower the cost of labor. Are you saying that?
No. See,
Well, I've got it wrong.
So no, we've got to. I do agree with you. We do have to subsidize the businesses in order for them to be in business. But we don't need to do it in the method that Ronald Reagan did in the 80s by giving amnesty to 2.5 million people and then having to act surprised when 5 million people claim that amnesty from inside our borders. Okay, that's not the way to do it. But we do have to subsidize the businesses. So here, just maybe this is sarcasm, but let's take the military and let's do a FOD walk down, from the northern border to the south with the military. And let's find those people, those so-called American patriotic businesses that want another tax cut on the business front that are employing these illegals, and let's deport them. If you've got a businessman that's got a concrete company and he's employing more Guatemalans than Mexicans, then let's deport him to Guatemala. And it would only take 30 days to get it done. If the people that dole out the government money, right, that falls out of the sky through a tax credit or through work, are being deported, they will stop doing that.
Yeah, Jim, there's no easy solution here, and I appreciate where you're coming from with this, but this idea that we're going to spend 15% of a city's budget to try to address a crisis that they created, I think that's the real scandal here. Can I ask you to shift gears just a tiny bit? Tell me about the homeless, the $45,000 per homeless person that we got off the street for a cup of coffee. How better could you spend that money to solve this crisis?
Close down the businesses that sell addictive substances. Regulate those businesses so they don't sell it to somebody that's just going to go out and drink that wine in an alley. I mean, there's too many places that keep people addicted. We have an addiction. We have an addiction issue amongst these people. That's the number one issue, is they have addiction. They should be addicted to something productive, don't you think?
Yeah, it's definitely addiction, but it's also the mental health that comes with it. Now, this may be a chicken and the egg thing, but we didn't have this much mental illness and this much homeless 20 years ago. What's the difference? Do we really think that people are just being born more mentally ill, or this is just some organically created I don't. How can the homeless thing be worse at the same time we've lightened up on our drug enforcement laws? How is that? Is there a connection there?
There is a connection. And unfortunately, everybody, when they move from a rural setting and they move to the city, they triple their income. So now everybody's moved to the cities and flooded the cities, and you have to have more illegal aliens to come out and work on the farms, because that's just the way we do things. We're chasing money in this country. So, and we tell our children, and I'm not just talking about the libtards, I'm talking about the so-called political party that has been overrun by Donald Trump. It all makes sense, because the Republican Party doesn't give a damn about anything but money in the first place. And now Donald Trump has come in and he has taken half or more of the voters, and he's taken half or more of all the donations that used to go to the GOP so that we could have a two political party system. And all we're doing is blaming the other political party. We have to look inward if we're going to continue to call ourselves conservatives, and find out just what it is we truly do that is actually conservative for once. We got to stop blaming the other people.
Jim, I agree with that part of it. There's got to be another solution here too. Think about this. And Jim,
put everybody in the military.
Put
them all in the military.
Hey,
right, that's what we did in the 80s. In the 80s,
so crazy.
And then in the
there was a question that was posed back when I was a freshman at Mullen High School for the 18 months I was there, for the 3 semesters I was there. Frank Safara's class. Billy was also a Frank Safara student at one point. Big speech and debate god, kind of in the Colorado area. And the question that was posed the year I was a freshman, so we're going way back, 40 years back, was solve poverty, basically. And my solution is exactly what you just said. I said, take every able-bodied homeless poor person and conscript them. Give them service, mandatory service. And people were appalled. And that was back during the heyday of Reagan. And I thought it was a brilliant idea. I love that you've come up with it too.
Take their hair away, take their clothes away, scream at them until they can focus on small tasks, and then set them in a desk and teach them something. I mean, it would be cheaper to do it that way rather than trying to, people are too fat to be in the military now. We're going to have to put foreigners in the military. It's going to be like the 1980s all over again.
We are putting foreigners in there. Some of them, we use it as a vehicle to get them citizenship. And I think in some circumstances, I'm cool with that. I am kind of cool with that. If we've done the background checks, we believe in their integrity and commitment to the country. I just don't want to see it become the knee-jerk reaction to everyone that slips over the border that, hey, as long as you put on the uniform, you can be a citizen. I don't want that either.
Well, it's been consistently done with people that were in trouble with the law for decades on end. You go to the military or you go to jail. And now, of course,
we used to do that.
Oh, it doesn't happen anymore?
We just don't do it. You know, the old days, especially in movies, they'd say, like, I'm going to sentence you to jail unless you go and enlist in something not the Air Force. No offense to the Air Force, but
That's because the Air Force isn't the military.
It's just like the military. I say that all the time. It is just like the military.
Air Force and the Coast Guard don't
for
count.
the Air Force and Coast Guard friends out there, folks. It's just gentle ribbing from one of your brothers. Anyway, Jim,
soft,
one other thing, and this leads into this article that I just saw. And thank you for the call, Jim. As always, good conversation. Jim's line is open at 303-696-1971. Here's the article in the Gazette. Forgive me, I don't have a cough button here. Residents can now apply for Denver's $29 million rental assistance program. What? We're going to spend in Denver $29.1 million in all of next year to try to help out people who are ostensibly legal, most likely citizens, working, paying rent, or trying to, already housed. We're going to spend $29.1 million. If you're unhoused, and folks, some of those people are doing that by choice. Many of them are. We're going to spend way more than that. $16 million more than that we have spent for just 1,000 people over the last 6 months. There is something wrong with our approach here. I don't know what's going on in Denver. And I think it's great that we had set some arbitrary number, because 1,000, it could have been 983 or it could have been 1,002, but those are just dumb numbers because they're not big and round. We like big and round numbers, like the millennial, like the 2000, the millennium. But we're going to spend $29 million to keep the people that are likely here legally, who already have contracts to live somewhere, who are struggling to make ends meet, but they're working. We're going to give $29 million to try to help keep them. If they make, what is it right now? The standard is, it says, who earn 80% or below of the area median income, they can get that assistance. Now, whether you agree with that or not, okay, but we're going to spend $45 million in less than 6 months-ish to get 1,000 people off the street for a lunch? There's something going on in Denver, folks. I don't know what it is. It's not just the optics. And you can't blame Mike Johnson. Somebody had texted in and said, hey, I appreciate your position on Mike, but he's corrupt. Look at all the backroom deal. I don't know of a single backroom deal. If he's having conversations with people behind the scenes to try to get people housed, I know money isn't going into this dude's pocket. He's not that guy. He's just not that guy. If there was ever proof that this guy was corrupt in some financial, self-dealing kind of a way, I will be shocked. You could knock me over with a feather. That's just not who he is. He just has an ideology that convinces him that certain policies that you and I believe are contrary to not only common sense, but a sense of fairness and American values. That's all. Doesn't make him a bad guy. Doesn't make him corrupt. But if that evidence were to come out, I'd be shocked, man. That's just not how this dude works. Nonetheless, I thought that was fascinating. Hey, let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. We'll come back for the final segment. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have Minority Leader Mike Lynch from the House of Representatives to kind of tee us up for this upcoming legislative session. Before I do that, I want to tell you about Gabe Ribble and the Empower Home team. it's interesting. I tell you all the time about the emails. I'm on this list. I've got a friend who's a realtor, and she hooks me up with all of these houses that come online in Douglas County. And not only do I live here, I mean, I was a public servant here. I own a house here. I want to make sure that I kind of know what's going on. So all the new listings and stuff, it's interesting because there was a time, I'd say leading up to November, where I was getting an email every single day with multiple listings for new houses of a certain type. I haven't gotten emails in a while. Now I get them every other day. Now that could very well be a product of the season. It could also be a product of the fact that there are less buyers and they're staying away right now because of interest rates, mortgage rates, and scarcity in price. We know those things are changing in 2024, at least in terms of the mortgage rate piece, because of what the Fed has signaled, I think up to 6 cuts. There's going to be a feeding frenzy. We haven't blown up a bunch of new houses. I'm looking out my window right now. They're building another house. It kind of pisses me off because it's out my back window and I can sort of see it obscures my great view of the open space out here a little bit, just in one corner. And I know that sounds like a first world problem, but it's my first world problem. Okay. It's a point of, it's from a position of privilege. But so I see one house going up here. I know there are others being built, but not enough to drive down the prices. Listen, these are tough waters. You may need to get out of your house. It may not even be a want. But if you want to get out, you want to get into that dream house, you got to call Gabe Ribble and the Empower Home team at Keller Williams. 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. No other number, just that one, 833-301-SOLD. You can check them out at Sell with Certainty Colorado, sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. You get all the free information they provide out there to make you a smarter, better consumer, including the selling piece. But they're really fantastic people that sell more than others for higher prices than others, more quickly than others. That's just what they do. Let them do it for you. That's Gabe Ribble, 833-301-SOLD. When we come back, we'll get to any other calls, texts. We'll wrap up this part of the show. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
I think we're hot. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Not enough time to take Joan. As we know, we love Joan, our caller, but we just don't have enough time to have the conversation that we need to have. At the 8 o'clock hour, at about 8:03, almost precisely, we're going to be joined by Mike Lynch. He is the minority leader for the House of Representatives. He's going to give us some sense of what the hell's going on. I'm going to ask him about the vacancy committee stuff too, but then also upcoming legislative session, what they anticipate. I have heard, you may have seen this on social media too, a talk of a potential bill being pushed for by the Moms Demand Guns Go Away, or whatever that's called, Moms Demand Action. What is it? Something like that. That they're going to, and this could be totally fake, folks, but we'll ask. They could be advocating for a bill that would ban concealed carry in churches. Like that's their business. We'll talk to Mike Lynch about whether he's heard anything about that or other things that he expects to be upcoming. Of course, in the following week, I've got confirmation now from Rose Puglisi, the assistant minority leader. They're going to actually start up their session on the 10th. That's a week from yesterday. That makes a lot more sense to me. And we'll talk about that stuff. I'm interested in getting your feedback on these things too. So keep your powder dry. Write down the number. Just have it ready, 303-696-1971. Otherwise, when we return, Minority Leader Mike Lynch right here on The George Show. It's 710. George Brauchler back with you here. 710 KNUS. It's halfway through the Thursday show of the first full week of January 2024. A week from yesterday, I believe that'd be the 10th. 3 plus 7, still 10, even in 2024. I think there's going to be a big legislative kickoff there. The session gets underway. There's no better person to talk about that upcoming session with than Minority Leader Mike Lynch. He's a VIP for me and 710. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, George. Good morning.
I was actually going to say there's no better person to talk to than Elizabeth Epps, but that would have been a big joke. First off, there's a lot going on, but even before we get to what you think is upcoming, but based on legislative priorities and all this other stuff, there's a vacancy committee issue that I don't know if it needs to be fixed, or if it needs to be fixed, how it gets fixed. But yesterday there was a bunch of stuff that took place. I saw HD, I can't remember what it was, 20 something that replaced 27. Yeah. Can you talk about, one, what percentage of the House, or maybe the House and the Senate, are filled by vacancy committees, selections, as opposed to voters? And then if you were going to reform this thing, what would you do?
Yeah, so this latest one brings us up to 30. So 30 of the 100 legislators that we have serving in the state of Colorado were put in by legitimately 30 or less people. So talk about raw power. I mean, think about that small number that is controlling literally millions of people's destiny at the state capitol. It's really scary. But, how do you reform it? How do you fix it? Well, it hasn't, and it's been this way forever. So this isn't like this is a problem that just popped up. Well, the problem that popped up is that now we've got tons of vacancies. I think the bigger issue is, why the heck is nobody wanting to stick with this job?
Great
and
question.
do it?
Great question.
And this is not, the glory days where you go down there with the big fat cigar and hang out and be important. People are beginning to realize that this is real work. In the beginning, you can realize it's real work because the Democrats have so screwed up our state that they have to work really hard to unscrew up the stuff that they've screwed up. And so it ends up kind of being a real mess down there. The options on that are to do a special election. Well, that's ungodly expensive.
Time consuming too, by the way. Time consuming.
Yeah. And correct, we're having a hard enough time with people to turn out in a regular election, much less a special election. So, I think the real problem is not that the vacancy replacement process is mixed up, but we need to address the core issue, which is, why the heck is everybody running away from this job?
Do you think it's the same reason, Mike, that we're seeing this in Congress? I mean, my God, who's sticking around, right? Like, Ken's leaving his spot. Lauren's moving over from her spot. There's always these rumors about whether Lamborn stays forever or leaves this term. And then you look around the country and you see people pop and smoke all the time. Is it for the same reasons? Because those guys at least get paid real money. I mean, you guys get paid slave wages almost to end up working down there. But actually, I think you make less as a legislator. It might be close. What's the dollar amount total?
It's $43,000 a year. Yeah.
That is less,
which is what the aides
Denver
make.
spent. That is less than what Denver paid per homeless person they took off the street.
Last week. Last week they spent that last week on homeless.
Unbelievable. But do you think it's for the same reason, or is it a different dynamic?
Yeah, I just the toxicity of this business is just blown up, and I think that people are not. Because of social media, because there's no private points, and so you can just pick apart these folks 24/7, and so I in some regards that's good, because these folks need to be at a higher level. They need to be good people, but you can't just make them all good people right away. And so you got all these folks that are like, well, wait a minute, I don't want my personal life intruded upon, and I want to go about doing the crazy stuff that I've done before. In the case of the Dems, I mean, they're doing crazy stuff in their personal lives, and that's getting exposed. So I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with social media and the constant view on that position. That is just, people are not geared to handle that at this. They don't feel the leeway to go and be a legislator, and that hurts us. That hurts the conservatives, because there are some right-leaning Democrats that would come around and go for really good ideas, but they are getting beat up on social media, so they have to go back to their pack. They got to go back to their pack where there's safety. And so we're like, dang it, we almost had them convinced that this is a good idea, and now they run back to their pack. So scary world.
Of that 30% of the legislature that's been appointed by a handful of people as opposed to elected by all the people, how many of them do you speculate, or what percentage of them do you speculate left because with Democrats in control of, Colorado in general, they're able to appoint these people into other positions like the Johnston administration in Denver or some other position? How much of this is just being able to hop from one political job to another for more money?
Well, I know in the House that accounts for, well, and actually the Senate too. I know of about 3 people that accounts for, so it's not that.
Only 3. Wow.
So we got one that's the chief.
What's the R&D split on those 30s?
We've only got 4, I think. 4 of those 30 are Republicans. So it's
grief.
Yeah.
That's something. Go ahead, sir.
No, and I mean, I would like to think that we've done that process better. I mean, we have not put in insane people, whereas the D's have literally. I mean, I'm really scared for the folks that they put in these positions. They're really, really left-wing radical folks.
Have you met Rose Puglisi? No, I'm kidding. We love Rose. As you know, she's a buddy. So let's talk about just one other thing before we get into the substantive bills that you think are coming. But the Elizabeth Epps circus that seems to follow her now everywhere she goes. And frankly, I think she's the one that's putting up the big tent to get people there. I think she's loving the attention that she has drawn to herself by carving out this really tortured image of someone who is a Black woman victim of her own party because she dares to speak truth to power, that kind of stuff. Do you expect that to continue in this session? And if so, how much of a distraction from the real business of the legislature will there be?
I think there'll be a huge distraction, to be honest with you. She is just recently, they made her move her office because for whatever reason, and that became a horrible racist thing that happened. She's not going to let up at all. So it's going to perpetuate. And plus, now we keep on replacing these folks with more radicals. Hernandez and I have not met the 2 replacements that replaced the latest 2 resignations, but I can just assume that they're not going to be mainstream, middle of the road Democrats. They're going to be the distillation of every crazy woke policy that you can think of. I think it's going to just get worse.
Hamas celebrant Tim Hernandez. Have you met him yet?
I have. Yep. I was a nice guy. The first time he went to the mic, I took a picture of him and said, "Here you go. Here's a picture of you at the mic."
Yeah. Was he? I mean, is he a gentleman? Was he nice about it, or?
He's a kid. He is a 26-year-old kid. So he's got the naivete of a kid. He's been radicalized by this woke progressive agenda. So
okay, let's talk about substance here. Have you had a chance to get together with the caucus to talk about, hey, here are the things that we want to push? And then from the minority position that you're in, man, you guys are in the hot gates there as part of the 300. How much of what you're doing is defensive versus offensive?
90% is defensive. So that's the other weight that the Democrats have. They have the weight of actually governing. And when you don't put good people that have world experiences in those positions, you struggle because you don't have anybody that you can rely on and say, hey, how would that affect your small business? And they go, oh, I don't know what a small business is. So the good news of that is that we really do. I mean, the 19 Republican members we have in there, I mean, Colorado should be proud of. Every single one of them brings some world experience to the table, and way more than the Dems. And so they do listen. And those are not anything we can spike the ball on, though. Those are conversations that happen during committee or in breaks at committee, and they go, oh yeah, that's a bad idea. Let's take that out of that bill. That's not nearly as dramatic as running an amendment and getting it on. That's on the record. So believe it or not, that's where the influence happens down there. And they truly do respect the fact that they don't know about things, especially in the areas of ag and business, definitely oil and gas. So they don't know anything about that. And now most recently with property tax, the Dems have nobody that has served below this level in a county position, because the only counties
so these
they
are people
represent are
all brand new to government.
Well, they're not brand new. They have never worked a rural county at all.
Oh, I get
where
what you're saying. I get what you're
there's
saying.
masses of land. Yeah,
They don't get
yeah.
that level of local government. That makes sense because Rose was a
Correct.
commissioner. You had Lisa
Yep.
Frizzell was the county assessor, and there's a bunch of others out there I'm forgetting about. But we have
Byron Pelton was a commissioner.
Byron Pelton, exactly. We have real local officials who now at the state level understand that when a bill is passed that has implications for a county or even a city, they know what that is and how to value that. And I get what you're saying. The vast majority of the people being put in positions there in the House don't have any clue how it works.
Right, exactly. Or when it gets specific down to businesses, I mean, literally when I was the ranking member on business, there were two of us that had, and that includes both sides of the aisle too. There was two of us that had business experience, small business experience at least, that had written a paycheck before. Two out of the entire committee, and then we're making decisions that will drastically impact small businesses and how they go about. I mean, minimum wage, scheduling. I mean, these are things that can put businesses out of business. And then when you don't have somebody that can relay that pain that you're going to inflict on small business to that committee, you run the risk of really screwing up some small businesses.
We're talking with Mike Lynch. He's the minority leader for the House in the state legislature. Let's talk about some more of the things that you think may be coming or things that we're going to offer on big topics like guns.
Yeah. Well, I think I think they will make another attempt at getting rid of any semi-automatic weapon. However, I will say, Epps was the champion of that, and she has been kind of hamstrung and put into the corner. So hopefully we may get a respite from that on this session. I'm not optimistic. I mean, every time I think, well, we've made it through without this issue coming up. So they'll have some gun stuff. I'm not privy to what they're doing right now. I do know that land use is going to be huge. They're going to take what was Senate Bill 213 last year and divide it up. I mean, this is what the Dems do. This is why they run this state. They are happy with a little victory. And so what happened last session is they took big bites and they were not able to swallow them. And so now they're like, okay, no problem. We're going to take that same bill and we're going to turn it into 4 bills, and maybe we'll get half of them passed, but we've at least made progress in the right direction.
Tell me how they're going to do that with 213. How are they going to split this thing up?
Oh, they'll divide up and I haven't seen the bills yet because we don't necessarily have visibility of all the bills just yet, but they'll divide up the transportation section of it and say, okay, well, this is how we're going to make sure that we get the buses to the next bill, which is that encourages this high density development by giving some sort of incentive. And then we'll divide it up again and then say, oh, well, we also, if they're going to build something, it's got to have chargers. And so they'll mix in the green agenda, but then what they're willing to do is lose components of that and say, well, we'll just go about that. And they'll get half of what they tried to do last year done this year, or 3/4 of it. Then they, knowing that they're in charge, they'll come back and get the other portions later on. If I
mix up this description, Mike, please correct me, but 213 was that really toxic bill last year that further eroded any sense of local control over the management of zoning and things like that, to the extent that if you're a Dem, you've so screwed up Denver and the other parts of the metro area with your housing plans that you see such an influx and need for housing that you're like, you know what? It's not fair that people all agree through an HOA to just have single family homes on lots and they want to live together. That's not fair. We should be able to have some say over whether or not someone should buy one of those single family homes, scrape it, and erect a multifamily dwelling or some such nonsense like that. Like you could put that up next to your regular house, independent of whatever you thought you were getting or contracted for. Am I misstating that?
No, that's exactly right. So they're going to create state law that will trump all of those HOA laws or municipal zoning laws, and say, for the better good, right? Here's the argument: for the better good of the state of Colorado, we're going to insist that we have high density housing right next to your $1 million McMansion, and that's going to blow some people's brains. And the McMansion hopefully is held by some woke Democrat that suddenly goes, wait a minute, I don't want
That's a great point, man.
an apartment complex next door. So that, but like I said, for the greater good of making sure that it's affordable. So they're going to use the affordable housing model. Well, if they want to make housing affordable, get the heck out of the way. Let the free market take charge. I mean, there are a lot of people that want to develop land, but they don't, because they can't get it done in a reasonable period of time, or there's just too much burden put on them from the local municipalities. And now we're going to pile on with the state putting more regulation on there. I mean, fix the construction defects laws, make it so that people are not
stop
afraid
letting
to build.
people sue builders over a paint chip. You know what I mean? This is nonsense.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And all those developers are leaving the state. And, once they're gone, just like oil and gas, they're going to go make money somewhere else. And then you're stuck with the only high dollar folks that say, well, we'll build it if you're going to, pay out the yin yang for it. So.
Yeah, we're remaking Colorado one wolf at a time, both figuratively and literally. Mike, on the gun thing, it makes me wonder if we're at a different place now. It used to be that we were just competitive enough as a blue-red state that during election years you could expect an easier, saner session leading up to it. And 24 is a big one, right? We don't have any statewide races on here that matter. It's just president and then all the Congress stuff. Do you expect that that's going to have any impact on this crew, or are they in such dominant position that it doesn't matter? This session will be as wacky as the last.
I really do believe that this finally, I really thought last cycle we would have seen some moderation and some common sense out of. I do believe now, and here's why I think that: because their own party is so big, at least in the House, that they're fracturing off, right? So now you broke up that pack mentality, and so now the common sense Democrats, and there are a few of them down there, will say, you know what, screw that. I am not going to do what the pack is doing, because I know that is really bad, and I'm going to go with this other side. So I see, because of their size and enormity, that they're beginning to splinter off, and that's good for us, because we can partner up with just enough of them to get some legislation through. And also, those are folks that we have seen, people that barely won last time, barely beat our Republican candidates, and they did not represent their district, and they're going to pay for that. And I think they're going to be wary of that. So I think we will see a little bit of moderation due to the election coming up for the first time.
With the gun thing, last question on this. I saw some action on social media where somebody says part of the Moms Demand Action agenda for this session was to try to get a law passed that would ban concealed carry in churches. Have you seen that or heard of that?
I have not.
Good. Good.
I know, but don't give them any ideas.
I just think it's one of the craziest things. I hope it's just a rumor. Hey, can we talk about the abortion thing too? One of the things that we've seen effectively used by the far left in other states is to put on the ballot anything and everything related to abortion. And if you're a state like Colorado that already has the most liberal abortion law maybe on the planet Earth, the next and only thing you can do is to say, let's put this on the ballot to enshrine it in our Constitution, especially during 2024. Do you see that coming from the Dems?
I do. I see that, and they've got the majorities to potentially get something like that through. I think they'll make an effort at through the legislature, and then they will also try to just run a ballot measure through signatures. I see that on the horizon, unfortunately. I mean, my mind was blown last session, because I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What else could you do to promote abortion in this state? And then they're like, oh, we're going to make it illegal for you to tell somebody they shouldn't have an abortion. Oh, okay. I mean, I never cease to be amazed by the lengths these guys will go to cement that relationship. I see that coming for sure in 24. We've got to do whatever we can to fight the heck out of that.
Yeah, it's also going to, and as you know, it's going to end up being one of those damn litmus test questions that every candidate, whether it's for Congress or House or DA or or whatever it is that's out there, that people are going to be asked. Do you support that? What do you think? Because they know that that is a wedge issue that seems to get some traction here with the bluing parts of Colorado. I mean, like including like Highlands Ranch in my county. I don't know how we combat that. I don't know if it's on the ballot and we just. I don't know.
That's going to take a lot of money, just like we did with HH. We've got to find those resources out there, and the resources means money. People that believe that that is bad to fight against it. Now, here's the other thing about that, George. If they were to get that onto the ballot, and now it's in the Constitution, they have effectively taken that argument away forever, and so then they can't rely on that anymore. So I think, honestly, strategically, the Dems are like, well, if we do that, we're not going to have anything to talk about in 26. We won't be able to beat them up on this in 26. So honestly, I think
I see what you're saying. Do we keep that one in our pocket for when we got all the state races on? Huh? That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Not happy about that, but that would once and for all put that to bed, and then we can move past that. But and that's the issue that kills us every time. So
it does. Last question. Anything, and I hope we get the chance in your busy session coming up here, 120, maybe it's 120 days. We've seen things change in the past, but 120 days of just dead sprint. What should we be paying attention to that maybe isn't on the media radar right now? What are those things out there that you're like, be aware of this?
Well, I know personally, my fight is going to be to make sure that we crack down on the possession of illicit drugs and specifically fentanyl. So felonizing.
You've been a big leader on that, by the way. You've been a big leader on that.
Yeah, that is, felonizing any possession of fentanyl. I mean, here's why. We've got the next generation of nasty poison right on our heels. If we don't learn how to deal with this poison, it's different. We got to treat it different than your typical M1A1 illegal drug. We've got to figure out how to deal with these poisons that kill now before the potency continues to go up with this. And so, I mean, that's one that I'm going to be pushing every single day. We've got to get sanity back to what is killing citizens. This isn't an inconvenience of I can't afford my house. This is I'm dead. And, heighten that issue to what it is. It is a killer. It is killing our most innocent in this state. And we've got to focus on it. We can do something about it. And we're going to get it done this time.
He's the minority leader for the House Republicans in the General Assembly. His name is Mike Lynch. Thanks for being so generous with your time this morning, sir. We'll have you on again as this thing unfolds.
Yeah, sounds great, George. Always a pleasure.
Take care, sir. Hey, that's Mike Lynch. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break. I'd love to get your reaction to this, what you think about the prospect of I'm fascinated by the tactics behind this. And maybe this is actually strategy since we're talking 2026 more than in the weeds tactics. But this idea that they're going to come for abortion on the big state ballot as a way to try to get their base to turn out and marginalize Republicans who have the right answer, at least from the pro-life standpoint. I'm interested. 303-696-1971. What's your biggest concern heading into this? What did you hear from Mike Lynch on this that causes you to have hope or even a little more despair? 303-696-1971. Before we cut away for a quick break, I got to tell you about a champion in his own right. He's the majority leader of butt kickers in the civil law system. His name is Dan Kaplis. He and his partner, Baber Waheed, have been fighting for victims forever. I did Baber's first trial back in 2006, maybe 2005, his very first trial, like the day he got sworn in, we were picking a jury. And of course, we won. Dan surrounds himself with winners. It's not just Dan carrying all the weight, but Dan is obviously the tip of the spear on these cases. He just has a great team that he's assembled, the Justice League, if you will. These are folks that go out and on a day-to-day basis, never ask, how much money are you going to put in my pocket? The only question they ask is, do you have a righteous case? Did somebody hurt you and take something away from you? many times, sadly, it's permanently. It's a quality of life issue. It's a pain issue. It's a use of a limb issue. It's the loss of a loved one issue. There's a billion different numbers you could dial to try to find someone that will claim to be able to help you. Or you can just start at the top and stay right there. 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551. Check out the team. Check out their unmatched results on behalf of their clients at dancapluslaw.com. Caplis is C-A-P-L-I-S, dancapluslaw.com. When we come back, you, me, the text, it's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em out shelves, your clutter transformation experts create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em out shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, another blast from the past, taking me back to my high school days at Bear Creek High School right there in Lakewood at about the corner of 285 and what we used to call New Kipling, because there was an old Kipling, but actually it's more like old Kipling. Now there's a new Kipling, a regular Kipling. Hey, my thanks to Mike Lynch. He's the majority leader for the House out there in the General Assembly. Great conversation. I mean, that guy just has insights. We'll have him back on. We'll have Rose Puglisi, the assistant minority leader, on next week to have this conversation. But it's a condition of where we find ourselves in the state of Colorado, and that is at such an extreme minority that you heard Mike say we are in a position that 90% of what we do will be defensive. I think he's right. I think that assault weapon ban, as it's misnamed, which is really a semi-automatic weapon ban, is coming back. They can't stop EPS, right? Like they could send the bill to the kill committee, but then they risk the ire of the Moms Demand No Guns Committee organization. What do they do with that? They can't stop EPS. She is like a bull in a china shop. I'll give her this, though. At least she was elected by people who are voters, like the voters of her House district. What blew me away was that we are now at 30% of the legislature is filled by vacancy committees that are made up of groups of what did he say, like 40 people? And you don't have to get a unanimous vote. Sweet goodness. What do you think of that? I mean, 30% of our legislature, 26 of whom are Democrat, are there as the product of a vote of less people than live on your block. That's bonkers, folks. That cannot be the kind of representative government we deserve. One of them, of course, is Hamas celebrant Timmy Hernandez. I don't get to see Timmy's postings anymore because Captain Courageous, remember the guy that was on video saying, I'm gangster, don't want to mess with me, I'm gangster. Apparently gangster means if you push back too hard on me, I will run away. That's the new gangster. Maybe that's how Hamas does it. We run in, we chop off the heads of babies, we rape some women, we kidnap people, and then we run away again and ask for a ceasefire. That seems to be the Hernandez model. Let's see how he does as this session kicks off. Let's go to the phone lines at 303-696-1971. Spencer, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hey, George. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man.
I apologize. I jumped in the truck on my way to work, and I only caught the last half of that interview, but the portion I did catch was about housing and the government getting out of the way. And I'm conservative, and I got to tell you, this is one of the instances in which I believe that government does need to get involved. I saw an article in the New York Times that was talking about legislation being introduced that was going to ban corporations from owning residential property, and I absolutely agree with it.
Why? And tell me why that is, and also tell me, though, as you talk about why it's effective, talk about how it's consistent with your view of conservatism.
Well, the thing is, I'm sure you've seen multiple people talking about the United States becoming a renter's nation.
Yep, I have.
And that's absolutely true. Try competing against BlackRock in a bidding war on a house. You're never going to win. And where I moved from in Minnesota, at one point, the state legislators had kind of introduced rules that prevented investors from outbidding, just your average family for a house. The average families had the first opportunities at those houses, and if those houses didn't sell, then investors could come in and make their cash purchases on these houses. But some of the bullet points that I saw where they were asking for a 10-year wind down, get this legislation passed, and then corporations like BlackRock had to start liquidating their residential properties. And I absolutely agree with it. Why are corporations buying residential properties? I understand there's a free market, but there's a line in which the free market just, completely crushes, a family trying to get a home, because they look at it as, well, we can pay way more money than these people can pay for this house, and then we'll just recuperate over the next 50 years, in whatever means they seem. But,
Isn't the answer to that, though, to diminish the value of the investment by increasing the supply of housing, right? So then there wouldn't be this, hey, I can't afford to do something because prices are high on the houses. And oh, by the way, the only things that are available I can rent. Wouldn't the answer be a conservative free market answer be, let's take the chains off of builders here. Let's just get more housing, give people options. And now those houses don't value as much.
Yes, I agree that removing corporations from owning residential property is a part of the solution. I don't think it's the entire problem, but I absolutely believe it is contributing to the problem in a dramatic way. And yes, I agree that the government needs to get out of the way when it comes to building new homes and, trying to tell a community that I'm going to put a high density building in this area and, all the problems that brings. But yeah, I don't know. I just, I don't think corporations should be buying residential property. They have many other avenues to pursue to make money.
But think about that, Spencer. When you say that in those terms, I mean, if in part it's, hey, we're just going to treat single family housing as unique in terms of a commodity in the economy, maybe that's a different conversation. Maybe it's not. But when you say, listen, businesses have 8 billion other avenues to earn money, they don't need to be involved in this one because of the negative consequences. Don't we empower government to start thinking in those terms about other industries and whatever they are? I don't know, but I'm saying from a conservative standpoint, having the government come in and say, if you're this type of entity, you may not purchase this. I guess I'm stupid enough to not know. Do we do that with anything else? Any other products out there?
Well, the only thing I can think of is when companies get so large, they become a monopoly. The government will step in and break the company up. And that is absolute interference in the private sector from the government. And I think most people in the United States absolutely agree with that approach. I don't want to give the government free rein. But there are some areas in which I think that they could absolutely make a difference that better serves American citizens, right, over corporate interest. But to touch briefly on the conversation about taking the shackles off the builders.
Yeah.
I've been shopping for a house since I moved here over a year ago. And the stories that I've heard about Lennar and Richmond and these home builders
what have
are
you
pretty
heard?
bad. Oh, well, one of my coworkers' driveway and garage had to be completely replaced because it collapsed. They did a horrible job prepping it.
Dang.
Every home that's being built, have you seen how they install the lawns? In the state of Colorado with water issues, they don't do any prep. They just lay your grass right on top of the clay and call it good. And, I think that they need to be held to a higher standard, but cities will kowtow to these builders because of how much money they're bringing in, and they will overlook major flaws in their building theory, that I think is just horrendous. And it ends up costing, $40,000 to install a lawn just to have it die on you in a year.
But that doesn't sound like a builder issue because you usually contract for the lawns after the fact. I'm a toll guy. I've been a toll guy for years, and they do a nice job. Don't get me wrong; it isn't flawless. We've had to have dudes come back out, and this didn't work, or that thing happened. They had to tear up the concrete in part of the basement because it sank, and that's a subcontractor issue, right? That's who they bring on board. But those things are kind of always
the GC is responsible for the sub. The GC hires the sub. The fault lies with them.
Agreed.
And they're supposed to be monitoring those subs that they're doing their job. But some communities are front lawn only. Some communities are you do it all yourself. But it doesn't change the fact that, they are trying to cut costs and it ends up costing the homeowners. And I'm sure there's multiple people that could call in and talk to you about their horror stories with their builders.
I'm sure they can. And I could be part of that conversation. And before I let you go, by the way, great call, Spencer. I hope you keep calling back in.
Thank you, George.
This kind of feeds into Jim from Denver's call from a bit ago about the thing. If you talk to your GCs out there, what they'll tell you is there is such a lack of skilled labor in the home building stuff, whether it's drywallers, framers, concrete folks, all that stuff. They're like, listen, we can't keep the good ones, right? Like when you find a good crew, another builder will show up or another GC will show up and say, we'll pay you an extra X number of dollars a week or a month. And they just leave. Like they'll leave in the middle of the job and be like, bye-bye, and move on. It's because we don't have enough skilled laborers. And that feeds back into that conversation about what the hell are we doing with immigration? But that's for another day. Spencer, thanks for the great phone call. I'm up against a break here. Hey, our number 303-696-1971. Jack, I promise I'm going to get to you when I come back. Got a little bit of a time off here for this break, but before we end this hour, I'll have you. And in fact, we'll take you over the top of the hour, 2 callers at 303-696-1971. Can I do you a favor and talk to you about our good friends at Advanced Hair Restoration? I know what you're thinking. I know it. And that is, I don't need this. I don't want to go down that road. I'm man enough that if I start losing my hair, I'm happy to wear hats or comb it over. Hell, I'll just shave it and go bald, since that's kind of a good look too. You don't have those only options, man. You have the ability to call our friends, Dr. Tanya Pauls and her crew at Advanced Hair Restoration. Now, you can look up everything that they do, all the guaranteed outcomes that they have, the unmatched results, the in and out one-day servicing. Check them out at advancedhair.com. Advanced ends in a D, advancedhair.com. But here's the deal. If you call them today, set up the appointment today, you get $250 off of the treatment, and, I mean, that's the best part, and 250 free hair grafts. And put yourself in a position in 2024 to be the new you, which is really probably the old you, the younger you, the more energetic feeling, the more confident feeling you. That's advancedhair.com. Call them at 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. Stick around. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. On the George Show, 710 KNUS. I am back. I'll be with you for another hour. If we don't get to your call, your text before 9, I promise we'll take it over the top of the hour. The conversation is the part I love the most. That includes the conversation I had in my very house where I am right now, just right before Christmas with Brent and Joyce Tolliver. Brent's the son, Joyce is the mom. They have this fantastic small business. I love them. RollEmOutShelves.com. RollEmOutShelves.com. They came over all the way down from their office up north. This is just what they do. They'll go wherever your house is. They'll walk through. They'll tell you, hey, can we take a look in that cabinet here? What are you thinking there? And all they do is figure out a way to make your home better than it was before they walked in the door, because they provide the roll them out shelves that'll do things. I didn't even know some of the things they had available till they came out, brought me some samples, directed me to their website, RollEmOutShelves.com, where you can see the videos of their employees, not contractors, employees installing these things. 1 hour, 2 hour, boom, bang, and you're happy in your home. Again, give them a call, 303-475-9601. It's a free estimate, free home in-home estimate, 303-475-9601, RollEmOutShelves.com. Let's go to Jim. Jim, you're on 17 KUS. What do you think? Oh my God, I said Jim. It's Jack. Jack, you're on 710 KNUS. Jack, that's my fault, not G's.
It's okay. I've been called worse. At least you didn't call me a Democrat.
You might be during this call. Let's find out. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it may seem like a really fine point to some people, but you have a caller calling in saying that companies should not be allowed to buy private property. I don't know if he understands that citizens of the United States have the right constitutionally to enter into contracts between the two parties without interference by the government. And if you start tearing that down like he thinks it's okay to do, the next thing they'll say is that you can't sell a house to somebody unless they're over 6 feet tall. And then the next thing they're going to say is my 2 grandsons have to marry somebody that looks like Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, where does it stop? Where does this social engineering stop? Is there ever an end to it? Thank you.
I don't know, and I appreciate the call, Jack. You're obviously a good conservative too, but I think that Spencer is struggling with this because he has the conservative principles, but in this one unique area, I think he's saying we need a carve out, and maybe it's a short time thing, maybe it's a limit, but I just don't like empowering the government to do more, to interfere with the private sector, contracting with the private sector. I just don't like it. His reference to monopolies, that's legit, that's fair. But this is a little bit different than that. Hey, listen, stick around. I want to talk a little Vivek Ramaswamy. He said something yesterday I liked. Yeah, you're going to hear it. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here at 710 KNUS. Final hour of the Thursday show, first full week of January of 2024. I'll be back with you from 6 to 10 a.m. Manana. Chuck, after me for 2, a little D pre-Seb until 4, and then Brandon Tatum will take you all the way to the evening 4 to 7. Of course, the best part's the local part. That's just me saying, I'm not saying don't listen to the other guys, but come on, man, this is the best part because you can call in and participate in this, and we can have conversations about the topics of the day, both national and local, as we want to have them. Now, you know from listening to the show, I'm not super impressed with Vivek Ramaswamy, not from the standpoint that he isn't smart. I'm sure he's way smarter than I am. Saw this social media post of him playing piano at something. I mean, it's just an impressive dude. He's an accomplished dude. He's a self-made millionaire guy. I mean, all that stuff is to be respected. I just don't like his politics. And that isn't to say that he can't be right. He just can't be right with me all the time. He just has this approach to him, this feel to me like he wants to be Trump Jr., which he could never be. And he's just this crazy idea guy. He's the Billy Blazewicz of 1982's The Night Shift with Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton and Shelley Long. And so I'm not a huge fan. I get what he's doing, been super successful. Don't misunderstand me. And I don't think he has a corrupt purpose and all that stuff. I'm just not a huge fan. However, I think if we're going to be intellectually honest, we have to call out the good things that people do, even if we're not huge fans otherwise. And this dude got asked a question by a reporter from the Washington Post in Iowa, right after Vivek had received the endorsement of Steve King, which is no small thing. Big time member of Congress from Iowa, carries a lot of weight. Also super conservative guy. And he gets asked this question about, does he oppose white supremacy? Words to that effect. That's the pitch. And I don't know if they meant it to be a hanging curveball or whatever, but dude crushed this thing. I'm not even sure he knows what baseball is or plays it, but nonetheless, he crushed this thing. G, can you play that clip?
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
What do you expect from
Mic drop. Holy smokes, that was good. Dang, that was spot on. He's also a great communicator. He has just the one pitch. He doesn't have any other inflections than the one you hear in every answer. But oh my gosh, that was good. That was a couple paragraphs of Jack Johnson left and right into that reporter. And didn't he say what you were thinking this whole time? Isn't this kind of the model you now expect from candidates? It wasn't disrespectful, but the guy came right out and said, shame on you. And he wasn't talking about her as an individual as much as he was the mainstream legacy media, right? Like, shame on you for having perpetuated this nonsense. I'm against vicious racial discrimination. Who isn't? But I just thought, man, that's a good answer. That could get him some traction. Not enough to win or even come in second, but that could get him some traction. I like that answer. And that is to challenge the premise of these lefties as they try to get you to denounce this or denounce that, and he wouldn't buy into it. The other thing I gathered from this, I'd love to get your feedback on this, 303-696-1971. The other thing that you learn about this is the modern era. You know, there used to be trackers, and they still exist, where they send trackers around. That's the opposition, usually funded by a third party, sometimes a Soros-based group, sometimes just some other left-wing group, and they follow around candidates for office. Used to be just the major ones. Now they'll go follow anybody and try to develop a series of quotes or engagements with other people, some of them staged, some of them not, where they think the person is caught off guard, maybe they're at ease, and they record them saying something that they can then cut and use on the media like, oh, can you believe so-and-so said this? The response to that in many ways has been that the candidate themselves has to have somebody recording their entire encounters with the public. You almost have to have like a body cam. Maybe that's the way to go, a body cam throughout your encounters. And the reason you have to do that is because these things get taken out of context and brutally altered. Imagine if that exchange had taken place and the only person recording the event was the Washington Post reporter who asked the question. Would we have ever heard that? Would we have believed it? Would we have known it? He's right, man. The Washington Post article would have led with Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to denounce white supremacy. He's exactly right. But this now has to be the response for candidates from dog catcher to president. You got to have somebody by your side recording every encounter. Maybe that's the new business we start, G. We got to get Billy involved too, but and that is a politician body cam. So you're allowed to actually record everything yourself. So when somebody says, hey, this happened and that happened, you can be like, no, I was there. This is my view. If my eyeballs were in my sternum, this is my view, or something like that. What did you think of his response? Do you agree with it? I do. Was he wrong? Was this the kind of answer you expect from a DeSantis or a Haley or a Trump? My God, man, it's different than Trump's too, because Trump would go after the reporter, but personally. Do you know what I mean? Like Trump's response would have been, you're a nasty woman or some such thing, blood coming out of all of her openings or whatever. That's how he would do it. This is far more effective, persuasive, and nuanced than those things. I just thought it was the best thing I'd heard from Vivek Ramaswamy so far. Does this change your opinion about him? Does this make you want to give him another look? And what do you think? 303-696-1971. Looking at Vivek, by the way, you notice that he's a young man. I think the dude's like 15 or 16 or something like that. But even with his hair as it is, that could be the permanent hairline. It could be the hairline he has until he goes into the grave many, many years from now. But it also could be a sign when you wear it up poofy like that, it's to distract from the fact that the scalp is making some progress inside there. If you're a guy like that and you're like, you know what, I think I'm losing my hair. And hell, you may have been losing your hair like my brother since you were in your 20s. My brother just gave up. He went all Geronimo and shaved his head. And he's a good looking bald dude, just like G. But maybe you're not there. Maybe that's not the look you want. Maybe you have my scalp, my skull. I shaved my head for airborne school 100 years ago. I can't go bald. I would look like I had had multiple brain surgeries if that happened. There's another option. It's Dr. Tanya Pauls with advanced hair. And the Dr. Tanya Pauls people can figure out a way to give you your youth back, and along with it, the confidence that comes with it. The way you have to do that is give them a call at 720-459 HAIR, 720-459 hair. You get $250 off. That should be enough to get you to call, but they throw in more because you listen to the show. 250 free hair grafts. It starts working the very next day. It's your hair. It's not some synthetic thing. You walk in, you walk out, same day, guaranteed results. There are so many dudes out there that have had this done, and you don't know it because they're not wearing special signs that say, look what I did. They don't do that. But I talk to guys that have had this. It's phenomenal, and it sticks with them. It works. Check them out at advancedhair.com. That's advanced hair, HAIR.com. Let's see, 303-696-1971. Antonio from Denver, you're on 710. What do you think?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I'm a Democrat. I'm voting for Trump, and I would like to see either Swamp or Tuckerson to be the VP for Trump.
Hold on, you broke up just a hair. You said Vivek or who?
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson to be the VP.
Yeah.
Let's step back. I don't need to ask you about the Trump thing. I get that. The majority of Republicans are in the same boat. Why Ramaswamy
I'm a Democrat.
for VP? I know. What? Well, I'm just saying that. What?
Oh.
Hold on. You just blew my mind. What in the hell are you doing voting for Trump as a Democrat?
So Trump, for 4 years, I liked what he did. And as a Democrat, what my party's been doing for the last few we've had in office, I'm just tired of it. And instead of switching parties, I believe staying with my party and trying to fixing the values, the American values to get this country better. Because the Democrats we got now, no, they don't have the same values.
Look, someone's going to ask, what are the values that make you a Democrat? Like, why are you a Dem if you're in agreement with how the last presidential term went with Trump? Like, give me a Democrat value that you hold.
Okay, so I'm going with the original Democrat values, where we believed in closed borders, we believed in low taxes. It was more for the country, for American people. Now my party's for every other country and not America. I'm stuck on the old Democrat values, which, like I say, the closed borders, low taxes. I don't know
Antonio,
why.
spoiler alert here. You're a Republican. How about pro-life, pro-choice?
On that one, you know, I believe incest or rape or a health on a woman, I kind of understand. But if a girl's just out there spreading it, getting pregnant after like 2 abortions, they should just tie her tubes. I don't believe a girl should just be out there having fun and thinking abortion's okay, because it's not.
Antonio, other than the governmental intervention on the reproductive right, other than that part, you're a Republican, man. I mean, you're pretty much pro-life, consistent with the party. No, you may have a D next to your name on the ballot or in your registration, but so far I'm waiting for that thing. Close the borders, low taxes, abortion only in the case of rape or incest. What makes you a Democrat?
Like I say, I'm stuck on the original values my party was originally had back in the days. Like I say, we believed in the closed borders. We believed in low taxes. I don't know if it went from Clinton when it went backwards where they flip-flop, but I still remember back in the days my party was for American, and now the way they flip-flop, I don't know. You know, back in the days it was Republicans who wanted the open borders so they can have people with the cheap labor. And just flip-flop. It just flip-flops over the years.
Antonio, tell me why Vivek for VP.
Well, the way he's putting stuff out there, like this racial stuff, and the way he sees our system being corrupt, what they're doing for Trump, how they're treating him. He has that mindset where he sees the wrong in it, and I believe with the way he sees things and the way Trump did the 4 years he already did, I think they'd be a good team.
Yeah, that's interesting. Antonio, thanks for the call. You are a unicorn, my man, in the Democrat Party. I imagine they're not going to invite you to a lot of their reindeer games, but I appreciate that you call in here. Keep doing it. 303-696-1971 is Antonio's line. Richard, you're on 710 KNUS, and I think we have Nick on after that. Richard, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hey, George, can you hear me?
My man, it is so great to hear your voice. It has been a long time.
You know what? Every time I hear your voice, I'm reminded of being at CU and listening to you crack jokes.
So for folks that don't appreciate the insider baseball here, Richard was an ROTC mate of mine. He was, of course, many years advanced compared to me in ROTC, but been a soldier for a long time. When did you get out, my man?
I got out in 2000. I got out in Alaska, and I spent, I think 21 years total in Alaska.
Holy smokes. Were you a judge up there? Did I see that? Were you a judge?
Yeah, I was for a while, but now I'm a federal employee. But, when you were talking about, for example, I remember you came up to Alaska one time, and I was doing one of my first trials, and you were a DA, but you were in the reserves. And I can remember
that's right.
I think it was a direct, maybe it was a cross-examination. And this witness, I just could not control him. And then I looked back at you, and you had these big big eyes, deer in the headlights. Oh my God, this is not going well. And then you gave me some of the best on the fly advice. Charlie,
I did.
That literally, you just don't get in the Army. I guess you get it all the time as a DA, but you saved my bacon, and I never really thanked you for that.
I did. What the heck?
You
we
did.
need more calls like
You
this.
Yeah, you told me that you said something like, Rich, when you're cross-examining this guy, you're the witness, and the witness is either agreeing or disagreeing with what you're saying. And if you do any more than that, you're screwing up. Sorry about that. And I turned around and it worked. And I thought,
you took charge.
Why haven't I heard?
You took charge. You got it.
Yeah, I took
Buddy,
charge.
that was up at Wainwright. That was up at Fort Wainwright, Alaska.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I never really thanked you for that.
Oh man, great story. Thank you. By the way, keep calling in on a regular basis as long as the screeners let you through. I'm kidding. They always do. You were interested, and you're great on YouTube, by the way. We get all your comments. I just can only rock so many text things at once, but you were interested in the Vivek conversation.
I was. I totally agree with your Billy Blaze assessment of Vivek. But I also think that almost everyone who's running for president is some form of Billy Blaze, and I think Biden is probably the biggest Billy Blaze. But I think one thing that I was disappointed with, let's just say Nikki Haley, but also DeSantis, is that they're just a little clumsy on their feet, and I think that Vivek, when he's confronted with a gotcha question, was quick on his feet and was able to deal with it in a way that Nikki Haley could not with the cause of the Civil War question, which should have been a layup. That should have been a softball question. And then there's DeSantis and his boots. He's challenged for his boots. And literally, that's all I can think about now is his stumbling response to the lips in his boots. And Vivek, he said some things that I disagree with. And I think I put it in my comment. There's one thing that he said about eliminating 50% or 75% of the federal workforce that totally has me concerned. I mean, that's totally Billy Blaze idea. But I just
one it presupposes an authority he doesn't have, right? Like, I'm just going to walk in and send an email that says, if you're receiving this email, it's your last day with the government. Like, he couldn't do that. But beyond that, your question was a good one in that, and that is, well, what are you cutting, man? What are we getting rid of?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of half-baked ideas that aren't thought through all the way. But I do think that he's quicker on his feet. And I think just in today's media environment, that's the person who's going to survive as president. Yes, Trump, liked to fight back and he liked to spar with the press, but his responses are not like Vivek's responses. Trump, for all the zingers he got in responding to the press, just as often he shot himself in the foot. And I see very few.
I think too, the thing with Vivek, and you're Rich, you're right about this. Vivek, and I'll let you finish the answer, but he is of the candidates, and maybe Nikki's right there with him and just a little bit low, but the dude's unflappable, right? Like, you can throw a whole bunch of things at him, but he is just quick enough and just articulate enough that, man, he sounds like he's plotted out a 3-paragraph answer every single time. He doesn't or stammer. Dude just vomits up a bunch of great sentences and paragraphs. That part is true.
Right. And the go-to response for the Democrats and some of the liberal press is, as far back as I can remember, every Republican candidate is Hitler. I mean, Reagan was Hitler, Bush was Hitler, Romney was Hitler, Trump was Hitler, or they're racist. And Vivek and Nikki Haley, they take that tool, that club that Democrats have been beating Republicans over the head with. It's either taken away or it's blunted in its effectiveness. That's why I'm kind of looking at these two more so than, say, DeSantis or Christie or even Trump.
Well, I think this is another topic for another day, but I think if DeSantis doesn't come in Iowa as a strong second, because he's not going to a New Hampshire, I think it may be time to fold up the tents and go back to Florida. And it's not a reflection of how great a governor he is. It will be a reflection of a campaign that just failed to get any traction. I think that's real. That could happen. The Vivek thing, him pulling off a TV, I know what he says. I don't agree that it's stupid to do that. If he had the funds, he would. This could end up becoming a two-person race after New Hampshire pretty quickly.
I agree. I don't get me wrong. I like DeSantis, but I think Florida politics is different from national politics. And for some reason, the message that he has that catches fire in Florida, that the Floridians love, is just not connecting nationally. And I don't know why. I think the press has gone overboard to try to make him look ridiculous. And, like I mentioned the boots. It was effective because every time I see DeSantis, I think about his boots.
You told him to tuck the pants in the white boots. Rich, I got to go because I got to come up against a heartbreak, but please tell me this isn't the last time you're going to call.
No, I'll call again. I work East Coast time, so right during the middle of your show, I'm doing meetings and I put you on pause, and when I resume you on YouTube, I'm like 20 minutes behind the conversation. So I'm always hesitant to call in under this, but when I saw you read my question, I was like, oh, now today's the day.
Yeah, it is great to have you back in Colorado. Thanks for the very, very generous words too at the beginning there.
Oh yeah, well, and thank you, because I never did thank you.
Thanks, man. We'll talk with you soon, Judge. See you. That's Rich, a good buddy of mine from going back 100 years. I mean, we're talking more than 30 years ago. And that time I was up at Fairbanks, that's where Wainwright is, that he's talking about that story. That had to be, my God, 98. Holy smokes. What has happened to me? Where did the time go? Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. I promise we're going to come back with Nick, others who have called in at 303-696-1971. Don't want to leave, though, before I tell you about our good friends at Ultra Botanica. That name won't matter to you, but what will is the product they've got out there at the natural grocers called Ultra Cur. This stuff works. I'm not telling you that because they pay me to say it. They don't. I'm telling you that because I've used it. Billy and I both used it, and not 1, 2, or 3 days. We use like a month's supply of this stuff. And the fact is, if I didn't think it worked, I wouldn't read for them. Or if I was going to read for someone and I didn't think their product worked, it would have to be for so much money. But I don't need to do that with UltraCur. It is that patented curcumin-based all-natural supplement that you can get a 3-day free supply of at the natural grocers by going to the vitamin manager and saying, please give me my free sample. If you're like 50% of everybody that takes it within less than 2 days, that gives you a day left for other stuff. Within 2 days, you start to experience relief. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, overall health builder. Don't believe me? Check them out at getultranow.com. Getultranow.com. But do this. Don't rely upon the company to tell you all the great things about curcumin. curcumin. Go check it out on your own. Go Google curcumin and just see what this miracle product can do. And the way they've put it together and their patented formula and all this stuff maximizes the benefits to you. Go to your natural grocers today. Got to go to the vitamin manager and get it. But check them out at getultranow.com. When we come back, your calls, your texts. It's the Vivek Hour, at least for the moment. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Hey, G. Pearl Jam right here, going back to the days when, right about the time Rich and I were in ROTC together up there at beautiful CU Boulder. Go Buffs. Right back to the phone lines. Nick from Denver, you're on 710. Nick, what do you think?
Let me just say a couple of things about God, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
The shortage of skilled workers. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember a guy by the name of Mike Rowe. He's still around, and he had that
Oh,
show
yeah,
on
the
TV.
worker guy. Yeah. He great
Yeah,
dude.
and
Yeah.
dirty jobs. He'd go around anyway.
Yes.
This skilled labor shortage has been building up for years, and the reason is mostly social. Most families do not want their kid to get into a job where you could get your hands dirty. It'd be better to
Really?
be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But hopefully that's going to change. And what the government should do is what the government did in 1942 when we had a severe shortage of pilots. And they had these 90-day wonder programs where they trained these guys. They had to have a college degree,
Yeah.
but they became full-fledged pilots within 3 months. At least they knew the basics. And we need to get into a crash program to solve this problem. It's a terrible problem of not enough skilled people, and that's why it's taking so long to get anything fixed in this country anymore.
Well, the timing is right, Nick, because you've probably seen the same articles I have. People are starting to question the value of higher education at the level of cost that it has and how much debt is involved. Yes. I attribute this 100% to the federal government hijacking the financing of education. But, maybe this is the right time to do something like that. And I'm not sure we don't have some programs that push that, but maybe what you're talking about is we need to expand this and advertise it more.
Well, I'll give you some stark statistics. For every 5 people that are leaving the trades, as they call them, because they're getting older and they want to retire or for whatever reason, only 2 are replacing them. That's the problem. And so you need some kind of a government, not run by the government. They just provide the outlines. The details have to be worked out in the private sector, but you need a program to accelerate high school graduates getting into the trades, because it's just going to get worse.
There's a pretty cool facility out in Cherry Creek School District that they have that is a trades driven kind of thing. I wouldn't say it's an alternative to school. It's a supplement to school. And there are kids that get out there and learn different things. I don't know about the construction of the house stuff, but a lot of the other things like the HVAC, the computer, all this other stuff.
Right.
I don't know how many school districts have invested in that, but I like that direction as well. We have for a long time, maybe you're right, man. Maybe you and Mike Rowe are right. We have stigmatized manual labor by suggesting somehow it's not the right choice for people. And we've pushed a whole bunch of people into higher education. We've made it easy for them to gobble up a whole bunch of money that we're then going to tell them they don't have to pay back. And we've let them take ridiculous classes like ethnic studies or, women's studies or fiber art or whatever it is, instead of degrees that actually earn money and make a difference. I mean, some of these, we're giving people degrees just to stay in academia to generate more academics. I mean, they don't actually produce they're not expanding man's knowledge of anything. They're not producing anything. They're not solving any problems. It seems to me like maybe this is the right direction to go, man. Have you been in that? What's the industry you chose? What was your education in?
I'm a general contractor by training. I have not been in it in 10 years for a variety of reasons. But even at my advanced stage, I'm thinking of getting back into it and trying to put a crew together, because there's so much work out there. People just can't get anybody to do anything. They don't know what they're doing. That's why the quality has really plummeted, because the gaps are being filled by this unskilled labor.
You probably have contacts with people that are still in the game. And the story I recited was one I heard from the GC, on our neighborhood and stuff. And he was like, look, man, I could lose a crew in a day. I got people that are contracted to come out here. They're going to throw up the drywall. They're going to do whatever it is. If someone else in some other part of the area is like, I will pay you X number of dollars more, they just leave. They're just gone. And there just isn't enough. The competition isn't on the buyer side. It's on the seller side, the laborer side of things. And while it's great for them, horrible for builders.
Well, that's a legal problem. If this crew had already signed a contract with the builder to do this job and then they just leave, I don't know legally what the recourse is, but they've broken their contract.
Oh, my guess is what it is it's not, my guess is it's not the business owner subcontractor. It's his wink, wink, nudge, nudge migrant labor force that are popping smoke and leaving. That's my guess. You ain't taking them to court.
Well, if that's the case, they don't care because most of them don't have proper papers, and you can't really go after them legally because they don't have anything, and they don't. There's nothing you can take from them. So I could see that happen. Yes.
Hey, can I convert you to a caller on this other topic? I know you called in this one. This has been a great conversation, especially given your background and experience. But this Vivek Ramaswamy, I played that clip. I may play it again before the end of the show. I was taken with it because I found myself nodding and going, yes, yes. Did you hear it? And what do you think of him?
I did not hear the clip. However, I have heard him before. I don't agree with a lot of the things he said. And he comes across as a little bit too brash and I know it all attitude. However, he's got a sharp mind and he's quick on his feet. And as one caller said, that is a definite plus in today's news cycle.
And he's fearless with it too. Nick, great call. And I think you just nailed it. Brash, know it all, but quick on his feet, sharp. Great call, Nick. Thanks. Hey, Nick's line is open, 303-696-1971. Let me do this. Let me do a read and then I'll have G play that clip again. It just spoke to me in a way that I'm like, why can't more candidates be this good at responding to some of these gotcha questions out there? I just thought it was well done. Before I do that though, I want to tell you about somebody who's in the trades, who does a wonderful job for you. And what this guy has done is figured out a way to create a business where he has long-term employees because he treats them right. He pays them right. That's Mitch Floria with the Art of Granite. He doesn't have subcontractors to worry about getting pulled away, this, that, or the other. People try to come and poach his employees all the time, but they can't because they're a family out there. And the reason they're a family is they are dedicated to doing a great product at the right price and making your house look awesome, making you happy with what you've got. So whether it's the God-made stuff, granite, which is in the name of the website, theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com, or marble, or even the man-made stuff, the quartzes. I got quartz in mine, and it looks fantastic. I mean, it looks natural to me, but they were able to carve this thing into. The other thing that they do that is so brilliant is, it's hard to get a giant piece of anything without blowing your budget. So they get the pieces at the reasonable to install and to make and all that stuff. And they put these things together in such an attention to detail, flawless way. Like you've been in some houses where you've seen there's some sort of ribbon of this running through that and all that. And you can see the divisions in the countertop. Not with this one. There's like maybe one spot. If I stare at long enough, I'm like that, but the rest of it, fantastic. When you go to his warehouse, his showroom, you don't see any mistakes at all. These guys are that good and they love 710 listeners. So here's the deal. You purchase a kitchen countertop package, you get it. Awesome installation, awesome customer service, but then they'll throw in the bathroom countertop for free. They want to encourage you to beautify the entire house. Maybe it's a finished basement. Maybe it's a laundry room. Doesn't matter. And if you're only doing one room, they don't care. They'll throw in the sink for free. And oh, by the way, everybody gets wholesale prices. It's just the people that say they listen to this show that get the benefit of the free bathroom countertop or free sink. Check them out at theartofgranite.com, but I'd give him a call on his cell phone, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. Tell Mitch George told you to call. Hey, G, can you play, before we go to break, can you play that clip one more time that Vivek had?
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which actually fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
What do you expect from
Boom. It's Vivek Ramaswamy, I think yesterday. 303-696-1971. Let's cut away for a break. We'll come back. We'll take your calls, your texts. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Final segment of the show. Before I get into the business of things here, I've got to get into the business of things here at the radio. And that means to remind you of a superstar justice seeker out there named Dan Kaplis and Baber Wahid. Dan, as you know, has not just been a fighter for justice for decades here. Dan is also a guy who made the really horrific employer mistake of bringing me on board as a brand new civil attorney back in 2005, 2006. I can't remember when it was, but I left the DA's office in Jeffco in the 1st Judicial District. I thought I had seen every bad case a guy would want to see. It turned out I was wrong on that. I didn't know Aurora was in my future by 5 years, but 6 years. But Dan brought me on board, taught me how to try civil cases, and I ended up doing Baber's first. And I got to tell you, some of my takeaways from having worked with Dan for a couple years were that the guy doesn't care about the money piece. I know that sounds crazy, but not from his own standpoint. The guy doesn't care about his money. He cares about getting you as much justice, and usually that takes the form of a financial settlement, as he can. I've just never heard him haggle over things like that. The other takeaway from him is dude's willing to commit himself even to sort of this novel, inventive thinking on the law if it means getting you into the end zone. I can't tell you how many brainstorming sessions we had on cases where we were certain something bad had happened. We were certain we knew who did it, but what was the vehicle to get them into court and into the end zone? And the guy, has been doing this so long. I learned a lot from him. You can actually benefit from all that stuff. Give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or check him out at dankaplislaw.com. Kaplis is C-A-P-L-I-S, dankaplislaw.com. Just some of the text before we cut away here. Someone texted in, George, who is G? G is Geronimo, and that's not even his real name, but that's who's working the boards right now. Here's another one. Someone texting in, it was hard to believe Antonio was a Democrat. None of us would ever vote for Trump. Agreed on that. I think what he's trying to say is I've been a D since Ds were different. Like a Kennedy Democrat couldn't be a Democrat anymore. You know that, be honest. Hey, George, Jeffco School District has Warren Tech. That's right. They even had Warren Tech back when I was a kid. My son completed their welding program, got a great job offer before he graduated. My experience is public high schools do a poor job of promoting these options, so students and parents are pretty much unaware. Schools are all about college readiness. Agreed. I want kids to be college ready, but I also want kids to recognize that you don't have to go to college to be successful. South Dakota has an apprentice program going on there. What was that, G? Oh, 1 minute. Let me read as many of these here. So are you saying you can be bought off or hawk a product you do not believe in for enough money? Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I'm saying, because I am a businessman. I'm an American. The good news is I've never had to do that here on this program. George, I work downtown interacting with migrants every day. 95% have fistful of cash they were given by the Biden government. Oh, my sweet Lord. That's crazy. What does he think of Chris Van Winkle popping smoke to leave the Senate? That's not Chris. It's Kevin Van Winkle. That's interesting. I should have asked that question. Should add these are known bills. There's so much more to get through. Listen, let's start this up again tomorrow, would you? Thanks for everybody that called in, made the show so great today. It's always you, the texters, the callers. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.